for Monday, April 4, 2022. There are no study session items for tonight, so we're going to just jump straight to the call to order. And if you are able to, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. They moved the flags, threw us for a loop. Now moving on to roll call. So City Clerk, if you could just announce roll call.
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Member Anderson?
Present.
Member Newnenkamp?
Present.
Member Russell?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Present.
Member Wink? Member Woodward?
Present.
Mayor Sierra?
Present.
6 present.
Thank you. And Member Wing should be present tonight. I believe she may just be running a little bit late, but will be joining us virtually. Moving on to agenda item 5, consideration of minutes from the previous session. Any changes or updates to the minutes from the meeting on March 21st, 2022? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move the minutes of March 21.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Newnenkamp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Thank you. Moving on to appointments, communications, proclamations, recognitions. 6A. We have 2 proclamations. I'll read them individually. First up is Arbor Day proclamation, and we do have Manager of Open Space, Dave Lee, here to introduce the new Assistant City Forester, Evan Anderson. But first, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Declaring April 15, 2022 as Arbor Day within the city of Englewood and encouraging all residents to support efforts to care for our trees and woodlands. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the United States and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in the city of Englewood increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the city of Englewood, Colorado has been recognized for 37 consecutive years as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways. And whereas the state of Colorado will celebrate Arbor Day on April 15, 2022, now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Othaniel Sierra, Mayor of the city of Englewood, and the city council hereby proclaim Arbor Day, April 15, 2022. So I'll now pass it over to Manager of Open Space, Dave Lee.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm here tonight to introduce our newest employee. He is our Assistant City Manager. His name is Evan Anderson. He comes from us from Sam Houston State University in Texas, where he was the Assistant Director of Landscape, and then prior to that, he was the Urban Forester for the university. He also has worked as a utility arborist for Arbor Metrics. Evan holds a master's degree in tropical environmental management from Charles Darwin University and a bachelor's in forest management from Stephen Austin State University. Evan's going to be in charge of our community forestry program. He's going to update and improve our tree inventory for us. He's going to work to improve park and public trees, and he's going to lead our Arbor Day activities going forward, and he's also going to help coordinate volunteers and memorial tree plantings for us. And with that, I'd like to introduce Evan.
Thank you to City of Englewood for welcoming me, and I'm really looking forward.
Is that microphone on? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it is.
Green is on.
Now we're on. Perfect. Um, Like I was saying, I want to thank the city of Englewood for welcoming me, and I'm looking forward to this opportunity and working for the city and its residents to improve and maintain the urban forest here in Englewood. So thank you all very much.
Mr. Anderson, it's great to have you on board, and I know that there's plenty of work to be done here within the city, so happy to have you start here in the city. Any comments from council? Member Noonkamp?
I just wanted to say welcome to the team. We're thrilled to have you. One of our favorite things, my favorite things about Englewood and so many of our neighbors is all of the wonderful trees that we have in our community. And we're grateful to have another expert helping to tend them and take care of them and engage our community. Thanks for being here.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Mr. Anderson, thank you very much for coming tonight and looking forward to what you can bring to the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 6B, Earth Day Proclamation. Actually, I believe I may just be reading this one as well. Get there. So whereas on April 22nd, 1970, United States Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin and Dennis Hayes organized the first nationwide day devoted to environmental awareness and education that was celebrated by an estimated 20 million Americans. Whereas this day of environmental awareness and education is celebrated worldwide in some 180 countries with the participation of over 4,000 separate organizations. Whereas the individuals, institutions have a mutual responsibility to seek ecological, economical, and ethical choices that enable the world, as well as our individual communities to establish and maintain sustainable societies. Whereas the global theme for Earth Day 2022 is Invest in Our Planet, which focuses on accelerating solutions to combat our greatest threat, climate change, and to activate everyone, governments, citizens, and businesses to do their part. Everyone accounted for and everyone accountable. And whereas on April 5th, 2021, the Englewood City Council approved the city's first sustainability plan, cementing a commitment to protecting our environment. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Othaniel Sierra, Mayor, and the Englewood City Council hereby proclaim Friday, April 22nd, 2022, in the city of Englewood, national and international celebration of Earth Day. Thank you very much for that as well. So any comments from council before moving on? Seeing none, that takes us to agenda item 7, recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up to speak for scheduled public comment is Wednesday by 5 p.m. prior to the meeting through the city clerk's office. This is an opportunity for the public to address city council. There is an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. And please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. Written materials for presentation to council may be submitted to the city clerk, and tonight I will be providing a response to public comment. First up tonight is Patty Meek, an Englewood resident, will address council. Good evening, Ms. Meek. If you could just state your name and your address or your cross streets.
My name's Patty Meek, and I live at 5155 South Elady Drive. And so, I know, okay, so I've heard rumors that tonight a big purpose of the comment is going to be to talk about single haulers and blah, blah, blah. But I'm here to remind everyone here, not just city council, but all of us, that we have a bigger, more crucial and encompassing purpose, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And I really don't want that to get lost in, you know how that can happen. And so I'm part of a small but very earnest working group to promote composting. There's a small group of us that are actually going to meet on Thursday with Mel Englund and with a gentleman from Compost Colorado. So we're out here, you know, trying to promote composting. So going on, so on Friday, March 25th in the Denver Post, there was a study in New Mexico that startlingly large amounts of methane were leaking from wells and pipelines. And that startling amount was 194 metric tons per hour of methane. And so methane is much more potent than carbon dioxide, and it's important to decrease it. In fact, methane is 84 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than is carbon dioxide. So we can't do much about New Mexico, okay? But we can do something right here in Englewood. So recently, Mick Froelich, our state representative, had a trash talk town hall, and Randy Mormon from Englewood, or from EcoCycle, was the guest. And what he reminded us of is that composting reduces green gas emissions in landfills, and it pulls carbon out of the atmosphere to store it in the soil. So Mr. Mormon shared with us on this webinar that Colorado is one of the worst states in the United States for recycling and for composting. We compost and recycle 15% of what we could be doing. And so why does Colorado stink at this? Oh, sorry. If we could boost it as a state, and again, this was from Randy Mormon at the EcoCycle, by just 13%, just by up to 28%, that would be the equivalent of taking 350,000 cars off the road each year. So why does Colorado stink at this? And it comes down to, then this is just my understanding, folks. I'm not an expert, it's my understanding. That one of the reasons that Colorado stinks at this is the way that our systems are set up with the recycling and the composting and the trash collection. And so Englewood, for example, setting up the composting, like I am not a person of means, but I'm comfortable financially. And I can afford to pay for composting. I can afford to do a lot of things like that. But a lot of people can't afford it, or they're reluctant to do that if they have to pay multiple people. So there are a lot more, and this is where it comes down to the the trash hauling thing. And I talked to a bunch of people, and people are on all sides of the map. I just want you guys to keep greenhouse gas emissions in mind. And so Colorado, people are much more likely anywhere to recycle and compost when it's part of one package. And alternately, Englewood might even consider offering incentives to waste haulers to pair up with independent compost providers. So I don't know what the final decision will be, but for City Council and for everybody sitting behind me, when you're making this decision about the haulers and that kind of stuff, keep your eyes on the prize, because the prize is reducing methane in our atmosphere by promoting recycling and composting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Meek, for your presentation. Just 1 second to see if we have any questions from council. Seeing none. Ms. Meek, thank you very much for your time tonight. Next up for public comment is Kevin Wright, an Englewood resident, will address council regarding the single trash hauler issue. Welcome, Mr. Wright. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets for the record.
My name is Kevin Wright. I live at 4655 South Julian Street.
Go ahead, Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting us be here. Council members, thank you. 2020 pandemic, COVID came through. 15 days to spread the cure. Turned into 2 years of chaos and uncertainty. A lot of families lost their jobs, became homeless. Others on the verge of losing their homes. Some of our iconic restaurants and bars have permanently closed, ending the Colorado tradition that we all grew up with. Large businesses that once employed thousands of Colorado citizens locked their doors, ceased their existence. The effect of the Colorado economy will be felt for years. When a new president was selected, our gas and oil industry was also nearly shut down. Several high-paying jobs were lost. As a result of the Ukraine war, gas prices had shot through the roof, doubling what we paid when we first had an elected president. Food prices had skyrocketed. Rental prices at their highest ever. Homes in the area selling for nearly $500,000 and up. Makes it hard for us to afford them. March 29th, 2022, Bloomberg News reported, we the people face an additional $5,200 per year in inflation this year. That's an average of $433 per family per month. We did not choose inflation, it was forced upon us. Now we come to waste management and the effort the city council has made to employ one trash hauler for Englewood. I asked the city council tonight, how many of you have researched and reviewed the complaints about waste management? I have 30 pages right here of complaints. They have a 2% excellent or good rating, 1% average, 2% poor, and 95% bad. I would ask that you please take into consideration the effects your decision tonight will have on the residents of Englewood. I mean, some of us are paying $17 a month. Adding $15 a month to our bill would mean a meal or prescription to those of us on fixed incomes. $15 a month, $180 per year brings our cost with inflation to $53.80 per year, $448 per month. We cannot afford this change you're proposing at this point of our lives. We are all suffering the effects of this new selected president and has imposed upon every American. Closing statement, I'd stress to you that we the American people residing in Englewood, Colorado are not too small-minded to govern our own affairs, and we are not willing to surrender our rights to a powerful sovereign so order and progress can be made. We believe that power is derived from the consent of the governed and the belief that through conscience and free will, each of us has the right to live as we choose. This proposal, I ask you that you squash it. There's no way for us to vote on this. The people in the apartments, they will not feel the effect of the homeowners or renters that have to pay for waste management, and we just can't vote on it. There's no way for the people to vote. So I ask that you guys squash this bill, work on it a little differently. I sure liked what the First Lady was talking about with the recycling and the composting. That was a very good point that she was making. You know, when I was here last week or the last time, I was talking about the effects the recycling will have in our landfills, in our air, in our the climate change that could occur. I ask that you guys really reconsider what we're looking at right now. Take it back to the bench and talk about this more. But I would really like for you to look at, you know, the complaints and what we're paying for. You know, we shouldn't have to have one company that's going to get a contract and be comfortable knowing that they have no competition and they can get away with anything. That's about all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Wright, thank you very much for speaking tonight. Member Russell.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Wright. So where did you get those complaints? Were they on the waste management website?
Well, I just went on the computer and typed in waste management complaints, and I was able to pull everything up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, waste management reviews right here. It's real easy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Any other comments from, or any other questions from council? Seeing none, Mr. Wright, thank you very much for your time. Next up is Ms. Kim Wright, an Englewood resident, to address council regarding single hauler as well. Good evening, Ms. Wright. If you could just state your name and your address or your cross streets.
Kim Wright, Julian Tufts. I'd like to speak on the other speaker and my husband. I think we're all saying the same thing this evening. I pulled up statistics on complaints. I went to the Better Business Bureau. Waste management in the last 3 years has 1,736 closed complaints. How many are not closed? In the last 12 months, 690. Republic has 4,309. 1,604 of them are closed. Makes you wonder how many aren't closed. Last time I was here, I talked about the composting. We live in a cul-de-sac. On that cul-de-sac, there's 9 houses. Half of us grow our own food. I was talking about composting back then also, and it seems to be something that everybody's talking about quite a bit. What about neighborhood composting? It could be set up. I talked about the big grocery stores and restaurants composting, and that could be turned into composting for the neighborhoods that are growing their food. They're talking about food shortages coming up. More people are growing their food, and it'd be great for the neighborhood and outreach programs for the city, for the neighborhood, for those that are having economic issues. This can help them out, and it would be something wonderful for the city. Something else I was looking at last night and thinking, I was filling up, I take prescriptions every day, and I was wondering how many prescription bottles end up in our landfills. Couldn't there be a program where you take a prescription bottle in, they put a new label on it, and they refill that bottle over and over again? There's better common sense solutions that we could do to help things out, opposed to taking our freedom of choice away on who we have as our trash company. It's just simpler things that we can do with the city's help and working with people, opposed to taking our choice away, because that's what it comes down to. Folks don't want our choice taken away. Last time, everyone's talking about Waste Solutions. They're paying $17 a month. I've called everywhere not being able to get a different trash company other than Waste Management, so I called them. Well, guess what? Yeah, you can get them, but do you know who picks up the trash for Waste Solutions? Waste Management. Well, we're paying less. Waste Management's still picking up our trash, still gonna get the poor service, but we're gonna pay less for it, so I guess you get what you pay for. Another issue I have is how a lot of this was communicated to folks. It ended up going down the phone chain, I guess, or social media, however you want to put it. A lot of us are not on social media. You've got the neighborhood, I guess it is, I'm not on it. Englewood used to put out a book every quarter with classes folks could take and stuff. I've not received that in a while. I was at physical therapy and I happened to see it, and there was a little blurb about one holler. So folks don't hear about what's going on at city council. I went on the website, and to get into the calendar, I couldn't get into it. The website's not that great. I think there's a way city council as a whole could communicate issues and things that are going on with people a little bit better, so that there's more participation and you could get more input as to what's going on, maybe from both sides, people that are pro, because I've not heard anybody that's pro that the last 2 meetings I've been here. And I want to touch upon what my husband said. We cannot prevent people that live in multi-family buildings from voting on something like this. You know, it's in the Constitution. If you're over 18, you're registered to vote, you're legal, you could vote. They outnumber us that live in single-family homes. They don't care about trash companies. It's paid for in their apartments or condo, HOAs, whatever. It impacts us that live in single-family homes. This is something that has to be squashed by you. And I said before, if we go to single hauler and we have issues, and there will be issues, it's not going to be the trash companies we call anymore. It's going to be all of you, and you will get a lot of calls. I know, that's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Any comments from council? Member Noonenkamp.
Thank you, Mayor. Mrs. Wright, thank you so much for being here this evening. And I take your point quite well about feeling the frustration of not maybe knowing what council is considering, or feeling like the communication isn't sufficient. It's something that's incredibly important to me, that the citizens of this community know what we're discussing here and that we're hearing your input. And I know we've sent postcards and done some different things. We do still publish the Citizen Magazine every quarter, so if you're not getting that, we want to make sure that you're getting that. But if you have any other ideas, I'd welcome you to reach out to me afterwards, but would love to hear anything you have on what you think we could be doing more. I don't know if you mentioned maybe you're not on social media. We've been putting our agendas and what council's going to be discussing on social media on Mondays to encourage people to know what's happening here. But it's incredibly important to me and to the members of this body that you do have full access and transparency. So if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear them.
Okay, perfect. I mean, your website, if it was more user-friendly, would be a great, you have to go into some portal and start in. Why can't you have a basic calendar where people could just go to your website and see what's going on? Why do you have to sign into a website or a portal or something? I mean, start there. It just, know your audience. How many people are in the portal? One, right there. It just, make it simple to use. I mean, kiss it, keep it simple, stupid, Just, that's a good start.
Thank you. It's helpful. I appreciate it.
And, Member Woodward.
I just want to mention also that you have the ability to sign up for notices like that, things that are happening within the city, and you'll get it in email form with links on it to go right to that spot on the site just by pressing the link.
Okay.
And that's helpful. I mean, I've used that for years now. I also want to just mention the composting.
Point of order. I think we just use this time for
questions
only.
Okay.
Was there a question coming with that?
No,
Member
there
Woodward?
isn't.
Okay. Thank you, Member Anderson, Member Woodward.
Okay.
Seeing no other questions, Ms. Wright, thank you very much for your comments tonight.
Thank you.
Next up is Brenda Hupka, an Englewood resident will address council regarding single trash hauler. Good evening, Ms. Hupka. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Brenda Hupka, 3639 South Fox Street. I was a member of the Unified Trash Committee, and I served from its inception until February. And I just wanted to kind of clarify some things that we talked about at the last meeting. But first, I want to say a big thank you to Director DeAndrea. She collected a lot of information for you, and there is no question that she won't be able to answer for you in your study session. I too was paying about $45 a month to Waste Connections, and then from last week, Waste Services came up, and I drilled down, and it's just like she said, it's really Waste Services pays Waste Connection, and that kind of operation has been happening and will continue to operate in that companies come into the area and they just buy up customers offering cheap little rates. And then they sell the customers back to the two big players that are on the RFP. And that just means a whole bunch more trucks coming in and out of our neighborhood for their own market gain. That doesn't go anywhere. And the cost does happen to our alleys and streets. You will often hear about people complaining about the potholes in their alley, and it's not from people driving up and down their own alley. So there is a cost savings to the city and taxpayers in the form of repairs to those alleys and streets, although it is difficult, if not quantifiable. And one of the things we did in the committee, though, is we did include recycling. We did mandate it. But we're not forcing anybody's hand to actually put recycling in the container. And it's possible for Director DeAndrea to negotiate just picking up those containers or not delivering them at all. The other thing that was mentioned a couple weeks ago was that recycling, they don't recycle because foreign nations in China don't take our recycling anymore. But the fact is that the American domestic market has made up for that. The Recycling Economic Information Report sponsored by the EPA in 2020 says it has created 757 domestic jobs, 36.6 billion in wages for Americans, and 6.6 billion in tax revenues, which equates to about 14,000 in tax revenues for each 1,000 tons of recycled material. Now, Waste Management has proposed a way to get that recycling cost back to us and save us money. And that is, they call it the, sorry, it's in the material I gave you. It's the Value Share Program. So what that is, say aluminum, that was a big commodity during our pandemic. We had a run on aluminum cans. We'll recycle so many aluminum cans, and then Waste Management will say, hey, here's how much that commodity is on the market, and now we'll take it off your monthly bill. They'll do that with paper, and they have a whole list of here. That is something that DeAndrea would have to negotiate. Another thing that Waste Management is offering, and it hasn't come out yet, is something that they call the Smart Truck. So one of the problems in recycling is that people put the wrong stuff in their recycling box. Hoses are not recyclable, the plastic bags are not recyclable. Waste Management's proposal is to have a smart truck. It takes in the recycling, and then a report is generated back to the consumer that says, hey, this was not recyclable, or this was, and this is how much value there was in it. So you're going to learn about a lot of these things in your study session, and I don't know if you're going to be able to get it all in 2 hours, but like I said, that she did a great job, and there's probably no question that she can't ask. That's all I have.
Ms. Hupka, thank you very much for your comments tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, Ms. Hupka, thank you very much. And last for scheduled public comment is Danielle Carr, an Englewood resident, to address council regarding surprise single hauler. No? Is she online by chance? Doesn't look like it. All right, so moving on. So that concludes scheduled public comment. We'll then move right into unscheduled public comment. Same rules apply, but you are limited to 3 minutes. And
we do have one addition to the list at the
Okay.
end, Kathy Woody.
okay, perfect. So we'll wait for Ms. Woody at the very end, and then we'll start with the people in person.
And if Ms. Carr gets here, I'll let you know.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. So first up is Farah Zerke, here to speak on the Youth Council. Good evening, Farah. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
My name is Farah. I am 9 years old and I live in Gerard.
Is that mic live? Okay, just checking. I don't think it's coming through my speakers, that's why I asked.
Farah, could you speak?
Yes.
Yeah, it's coming in. Go ahead.
I'm talking to you to recommend that the City of Englewood create a youth advisory board because it would benefit the community, provide good opportunities for kids, and builds on what some other communities are doing. A youth advisory board could be a commission for kids to present options and ideas to City Council. The youth advisory board would be good for kids because it would give them opportunities to learn more about government and actually take part in it. They could also learn good decision-making, more about government, and actually take part in it. They could also learn good decision-making and leadership skills, and play a role in shaping our community. Not only would it be good for the kids on the Youth Advisory Board, but it would be good for everyone in Englewood. The Youth Advisory Board could address issues that affect the community, such as youth mental health, youth drug and alcohol abuse, healthy environment, parks, schools, and many other issues. I'm aware that City Council already considers many of these topics, but two groups are more powerful and therefore more effective than one group. I realize that there are youth positions on the other boards, but this would be a broader range of subjects and only kids would be on it. Also, kids sometimes have different perspectives than adults. There are other youth advisory councils in Colorado already. Commerce City, Louisville, and Fort Collins all have them, and so does the state of Colorado as a whole. We could use these as examples of how to structure ours. As a child in Englewood, I believe a youth advisory board would be good for future generations as well as ours. I hope you'll consider this, and I'd be happy to participate in any further discussions about this. Hope to help this go forward in any way I can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Farah. That was great. Any questions from council? Member Woodward.
Yes, Carrie, I would like to ask you, is there any specific things that you would like to address on a youth council?
Well, I'm thinking that a lot of the things that I put in my speech, but also like safe routes to school.
Okay. Well, as I think you know, there are 3 boards that right now are trying to find youth members. It's an adult board, but it has youth members. And I would encourage you to apply if any of them interest you.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Mayor Pro Tem.
I got 2 of the cities, Commerce City and Fort Collins. What was the third town that you mentioned?
Louisville.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Any other questions for Ms. Sirke? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Up next is Ms. Marcy Brown. No topic given. Good evening, Ms. Brown. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
First of all, I'd like to say congratulations on your speech. It was great. It's Marcy Brown. I live on the, Sherman and Cornell. Okay. So I'm here to speak tonight about the single hauler trash issue. On the city's website, under Talk and Trash, under the heading of Advantages of an Organized Collection System, it reads, competitive bidding process ensures fair pricing. You pay what your neighbor pays. And I don't see where that's considered an advantage, quite frankly. Sounds like old-time communism to me, where citizens have no say in matters that concern them, but the city has the say if council is the only one allowed to determine this outcome. That kind of thinking didn't work out particularly well for an ex-city council member or for the city of Englewood. And whoever wrote that paragraph as being an advantage, maybe someone should be looking at that kind of thought process, because you're eliminating competition. And I thought that's what this country was about, competition. And last time I heard, we were living in a democracy and have the right to make our own choices. Waste Services, as you've heard from others, still offering $17 a month for garbage pickup and an additional $5 for recycling. That price is guaranteed for 2 years, and they don't charge extra for bags at the curb. They don't. So if others want to pay more to their trash hauling company, that's their choice. I have no interest in what my neighbors pay a month for their trash services. I only care what I pay and what I can afford. So I would urge council to listen to the flaws of this program and not coerce citizens to enter a program which would increase their household cost. I don't think that's the American way. And as I have just a few more seconds, I would just like to say, I find it ironic that we're here for Arbor Day. I mean, I've seen 50-year-old, 60-year-old trees come down in no time, just like that. Whether it's across the street from me or where you're putting duplexes and triplexes up, you're taking away the trees. I mean, these lovely old trees are going down. So I'm not even sure why you are having an Arbor Day proclamation when you're the ones taking them down. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Any comments from council? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, thank you very much for your time tonight. Up next is Kyle Conrad, here to speak on single hauler. Good evening, Ms. Conrad. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Yeah, my name's Kyle Conrad, and I live at Delaware and Mansfield. So I'm here tonight because I'm actually want to show my support for single hauler trash. I feel like it's a really important move for Englewood to do. I grew up in Loveland, Colorado. I also lived in Durango, Colorado for 13 years and then lived 2 years in Denver. So I've lived in 3 cities with single hauler trash. And what I can tell you is that these cities are beautiful. They're cleaner. The trash, the recycling is up. In Loveland, where I grew up, there's a 60% recycling rate because it's better. I also have worked on groups like the VOA. I was a committee member where I oversaw services to accommodate people who are on fixed incomes, which happens. I hear that tonight. A lot of people very worried about being on a fixed income. But what I found was that when the cities were in charge of it, they were better able to accommodate those needs. They could respond to people and provide emergency services. And I would think, knowing Englewood, we take care of our people, and I believe that would happen. We also know that when we're dealing with climate change, I have a 3-year-old son, and for me, everything, I think about climate change all the time. I mean, we're dealing with water issues, and so every move we can make to address it and make our air and water cleaner is important. And for me, this is a simple solution. Less trucks on the streets, safer streets when I walk him to school every day. A better, cleaner environment. And it's simple, you know, it takes 40,000 trucks or cars essentially off the road if we have single hauler. That's wonderful. I also think it could move us towards composting, which we know is a simple solution for individuals. It's one of the easiest ways that we can address climate change is by composting. So I'm hoping that as we move towards single hauler, this means that Englewood will eventually take on those next steps of composting and helping our city be more effective in fighting it. And so I am in support. I know it's a really sticky subject. Trash is personal. Who knew trash could be so personal, but it is. But I hope when we think about being a community, we come together to address and support each other as a community and fight for these things so that my son maybe in 60 years can sit up there with you, you know, and not just be dealing with the woes of climate change. So that's why I'm here tonight. I hope you will definitely consider it. And I appreciate all your time and hard work on these matters. Thank you.
Ms. Conrad, thank you very much. Any questions from council? Seeing none, Ms. Conrad, thank you for coming tonight. Up next is CN Dickerson, here to speak on single hauler as well. Good evening, Ms. Dickerson. If you could just state your name and your address for cross street.
CN Dickerson, Bates and Logan. Sorry, I ran out so fast, I lost my glasses. From the beginning of the 3 public meetings in the community room, the majority of attendees were against the idea of single hauler trash and the required recycling. Maria DeAndrea made a point that it would save our roads, that we had 11 companies crisscrossing the city, and that it would not cost the city anything for administration. None of that was or has proven true. When the committee was appointed, it was not balanced. 9 were case members or determined to advance the agenda of single hauler trash, regardless of how much it cost the city, or reduce services, or coerce citizens to pay for losing their contract choices. Ms. DeAndrea has admitted verbally and in writing that she worked with Case to bring this forward regardless. Of the few cities who have some version of trash hauler, as presented to the committee, all but 2 were far less costly and had tiered service that in one case allowed for as little as $3.25 per month, which included recycling and compost for low-volume trash. Regarding recycling, it will put double the number of trucks on the road to collect very little recycling. I recycle far more than waste management will take, and it only costs me a little time and a small donation. Many of us recycle, reuse, or compost, and therefore have no trash. Why should we pay for services that are less than we can currently get, cost more, and we can't use or need to use? Do you really want to discourage real and extensive recycling? I have experience with waste management in a single hauler city. It was and continues to be very costly and a nightmare. Contracting with Waste Management, who makes 5 trips up my street on any given trash day, and that doesn't include the recycling trucks, which are a whole separate truck. and they leave trash spilled. Contracting with waste management solves no problems and does create more problems and benefits no one but waste management, increasing costs to homeowners in the city, leaving the main source of trash and failure to recycle unresolved, which would be commercial entities like grocery stores and restaurants and bars with all their glass. I oppose the imposition of this misbegotten, unjustified contract on homeowners only. It does seem to be very coercive, and it's totally unnecessary.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson, for speaking tonight. Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Dickerson, I just want to clarify, you mentioned that 9 of the original members were either case members or strongly supportive of the initiative. As you know, I served as chair of that committee for the first 18 months.
Point of order. Is there a question?
Yeah, I just started my question before you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you counting me among those 9 members, or am I one of the 3?
I'm sorry?
You said 9 members either strongly favor or are case members.
The
Are you
vote
counting me among
indicates
those
that
9?
every 9 members were in favor of this.
So are you counting me among those 9 members, or am I one of the 3?
I said 2.
You said 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Most of the votes were 9-2. And I know who the 2 were.
That does not answer the question. You're under no obligation to answer the question. I just want to put the question on record. Are you counting me as...
I'm not counting you. I'm saying 9 members of the case were either case or strongly in favor of single hauler trash.
It's important to know, for me to know, which is why I'm asking the question, if you believe that I am among those, that majority.
The 9?
Yes.
The votes would seem to indicate that.
So I'll take that as a yes? Is that what you're saying?
You can take it any way you want. The votes, I looked at the
All right.
voting record.
Point of order. I think we got to the point of that question, or the question has been answered. Anything else, Mayor Pro Tem?
The question has not been answered, but I'm willing to let it go.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other questions from council? Member Woodward.
I just have one. You had mentioned, I believe it was 8 trucks, 8 waste management trucks going down your street.
5.
5?
That's what I counted on any one day, because I work at my window, my front window, so I see them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand why 4 would go.
No, this
Or
was just
two would go.
this is just for trash, not for recycling.
Yeah.
And there would be no reason for more than 1. Republic is on our street. I've got, about a third of them are Republic, about a third of them are Waste Connections, about a third of them are Waste Management. Only Waste Management skips half of their clients, and then they go back, and then they come back again, and then they go back again, and that's without the recycling.
And do you have street pickup and alley pickup
No
for
alleys
trash?
in my area.
Pardon me?
No alley in my area.
Okay. Thank you. That's my question.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, Ms. Dickerson, thank you very much for coming tonight. And up next is Mr. Ed Kahn, here to speak about water, I believe. Good evening, Mr. Kahn. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Hi, my name is Ed Kahn, cross street, 4801 South Sherman Street, Englewood, Colorado. Mayor, members, after speaking with Mr. Anderson at great length, I would really appreciate if the city would reach back out to me over what I've been coming to for 8 months, but that's not why I'm here tonight. We touched on water, and I'd like to apologize to Representative Russell. You asked me to get some information to the water department, and I would assume that you wanted it to filter to you. Because they cannot get me some data, I have not been able to take care of that, and I'd like to apologize to Mr. Representative Ward. You mentioned a program, and after speaking with Representative Anderson, I realized that I may not have asked about that. I did today on a phone call, and was told there are no Englewood programs. As far as water goes, you know, it's really terrible when one person pays $80 a month and uses 1,000 gallons of water. And another person uses 250 gallons of water per month and pays the same $80. They use a quarter less. They use a quarter and they pay the same amount. If we want our citizens to actively pare down their water use, then we must make it economically viable for them to do so. So having a minimum that a lot of people don't meet, but still pay the minimum maximum, in my opinion, is not a good idea. The biggest reason why I came down here tonight, and I'm doing this for something other than me for a change, I guess, I'd like to make a comment about what's been going on in the world. I'm here to ask the City Council to write up some type of statement and send it to President Biden on behalf of the citizens of Englewood, Colorado. The United States signed an agreement between the United States, the United Kingdom, Ukraine, and Russia. We guaranteed safety, security, and sovereignty to Ukraine in exchange for them giving up their nuclear weapons. If we as a nation want to promote non-nuclear proliferation in the world, we can't sit here and make those arguments, we can't make those agreements and then just back out of them when they're uncomfortable. Unfortunately, I understand that it is not a legally binding agreement. That's fine. We signed an agreement and it should be morally binding for our objectives as a country. And to that end, if we continue to allow this to just simply go on for months and months and months, the amount of detriment to the world economy will be in the trillions of dollars. And right now we need to spend those trillions of dollars on saving the planet. How about we save the planet first, and then we can argue who rules it. But thank you.
Mr. Khan, thank you very much for speaking tonight. Member Woodward, do you have a question or?
I guess I do. You said your water bill, is that your total bill is $80 per month?
My water bill increased from $55 per month to approximately $80 a month at a time in which I had just paid it. So they also, at the same time they raised it, they went to monthly billing, which does not certainly serve me. I cannot opt out of it. And I have more comments, but I only had 3 minutes.
Okay.
So, yes.
Well, so what I'm just trying to determine was $80 a month. When you get your bill, it's a utility bill. It has stormwater on it, has wastewater on it, it has fee on it, and some other items. I'm asking the line item for water usage. Is that what you're saying was $80?
I'm saying that there is a monthly minimum maximum that you pay. As far as line items, I came down to the city to try to get information so I could put together a packet for Ms. Russell, and I was unable to. But what they did give me was some data, and it would show, it only counts 1,000 gallons you use. My water meter reads 1. So when you look at the term of over the last, say, 3 years, it would go 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. I think you can understand it's not calculating gallons used, it's calculating thousands of gallons of used. Mm-hmm. And the minimum before you are charged extra is the minimum maximum that I'm talking about. How that is breaking out on my bill, no, I cannot answer that directly, but what I can say is there is an overcharge. And I don't see any benefit from using 1/4 of the gallons. I don't get a benefit from that by being a conserver of water, in my opinion. If that answers your question.
No, it didn't, but I was curious for your water part of the bill, just water, because I know our water is mighty cheap.
Well, all I know is my bill went from 55 a month to approximately $80 a month.
That's your total
At the
bill.
same time.
That's your
And
total
that's water
bill.
and sewer. And,
Okay,
well, that's
water,
what I pay for
sewer,
water. I don't,
stormwater.
Thank you, Member
thank you.
Woodward. Mr. Khan, I don't see any further questions from council. Thank you very much for speaking tonight. And I believe we may have one more speaker online. Is it Ms.
We
Woody?
actually have two, so Kathy
Okay.
Woody is next.
Ah, in person. Hello, Ms. Woody, if you could just state your name and your cross streets or your address.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Kathy Woody. I live at Grant and Mansfield. And I am here to speak in favor of single hauler. When you guys put out the survey about trash, you itemized a bunch of different, how much it would cost. Your highest estimate is cheaper than what I pay now. And I have waste management, and I started at a very low, and then every month it goes up. I've lived in my house for 44 years, and I have played this trash hauler bill thing for 44 years, and I'm sick of it. As soon as it gets high, I cancel that, I call somebody else, we start out low, we go high, call them. I've done that for 44 years, I'm sick of it. I mean, and I think it's great that some people have talked about how cheap some companies are, but like I said, I've done that 44 years. I would just as soon not do that anymore. I would just, and I am a retiree, I'm on a fixed income, but I would just as soon the city deal with it. Find us one trash company at a cost that's cheaper than I'm paying now. I don't have a lot of trash. I have one kitchen trash bag, and that's it. And my recycling is maybe not even a fourth of the bin that they give me, but I still have to pay what they charge. So I'm all for single hauler. You guys deal with it. I'm sick of it. And also, and I know this is a moot point, but my understanding that a good percentage of what we put in the recycle bin doesn't get recycled and it goes to the landfill, whereas composting gets composted. So it'd be great to have compost as an add-on rather than recycling, but I know that that ship has sailed already and that's not gonna happen. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Woody, thank you very much for your comments tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, Ms. Woody, thank you so much.
All right, our final speaker tonight is Dominic Duffel.
Good evening. Was it Mr. Duffel?
Yeah, how's it going?
Hello, Mr. Duffel. If you could just state your name and your address or your cross streets.
Yeah, Dominic Duffel, Evans, or Warren and Zuni. Yeah, Warren's and Zuni. Yeah, so sorry guys, I just moved to Englewood. And just a quick question. There's a rumor going around my street that you guys or not you guys, but there might be Section A homes or low income homes that are being built basically between Warren and Evans. And I just wanted to know if that was true or not. That's my question.
This time is just for you to speak and provide. No, that's fine. I can provide you an answer once we get done with this comment, but this phase of it. But anything else you wanted to add?
You guys are doing great.
All right, thank you, Mr. Duffel. You can keep speaking, actually. You still got 2.5 minutes. No, I'm joking. Mr. Duffel, thank you very much. Any questions from council? Seeing none. Mr. Duffel, thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, sorry. What was another question? When will you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, actually, just after this section. So
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Duffel.
Mayor, can I ask
Sure.
one question?
Member Woodward, Mr. Duffel, come back up. We got something for you.
Have you heard who the developer is or who's building this?
No idea. Yeah, we just moved in, and then next door, I guess these people had lived there for like 50 years, and they both had died, and then like a builder had come in and bought the property, and then, I mean, I have nothing against that, because then, increases the value of everybody's home. But
Is
then
this the big vacant lot that used to be occupied by Colorado's finest alternative high school?
No, you're thinking, that's the park you guys are putting in, right? You guys are putting in
No,
a park
not the
there or something?
park.
All right, but,
We're redoing a park, but
Oh.
not putting in a new park.
yeah, I had heard that you guys were doing something like that, but
Yeah.
no, this is between, like Adriatic comes here, I mean, I don't know, it's like Evans is here, and then
Okay.
Zuna is here, and then it used to be a landscaping thing is what my neighbor told me. But
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just
All right.
rambling.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much, Mr. Duffel. All right, that now concludes unscheduled public comment. I will be providing a response, and actually, I'll start with you, Mr. Duffel. Regarding the development, there is a section within our website that actually tells you, there you are, what development is occurring within the city. I have not heard of any Section 8 or any other type of development occurring within the city itself over in that part of the city, or actually anywhere within the city itself. But we can provide you like the web address, or if you just go into our website under community development, it does show you a map of everything that's going on. If you click on it, it tells you what's going in there. So it may be early in the process where it doesn't show up. So I guess in terms to address the rumors, if there's something going on, it would be within that development map. And the big topic tonight was single hauler. Just to kind of clear up some of the things that are heard tonight. Obviously, you can kind of sense that there's very passionate voices on both sides of this. Some obviously want us to do it. Some very passionately do not want us to move forward with this. We're going to be having a study session next Monday to bring in not only Public Works, but also the committee that was responsible for looking at all the different options. And then possibly council voting on how to move forward on the 18th. So there's no decision being made tonight. I heard a couple people tonight make reference to potentially a decision being made tonight. It's not on our docket for tonight. Obviously, it's a very passionate issue. We have been working on this for over 2 years in terms of a city. And Ms. Dickerson, you stated that it was Case that worked with Director DeAndre on this. There were 2 other committees that were looking at this from the start. Keep Englewood Beautiful passed this about a year ago, or maybe even over a year ago. The other one was Englewood Transportation Advisory Committee. So there's been many citizens that have looked into this over the last 2 years, and now it sits with this council to see whether or not we move forward with this. So any information about this being pushed by staff, it's not true. This is all being led by council and some of the committees. Director DeAndre is just gathering the information that this council seeks in order to make informed decisions. So anything to the contrary is not true. Seeing if there's anything else that I may have missed regarding single hauler, but I think that's obviously everybody knows what the pros and cons of this are, but this council will continue to look into single hauler over the next couple weeks. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for speaking regarding water. It is true that Englewood does not have a program to reimburse citizens for water, but there is something at the county level. It's the it's called the CAP program. I'm trying to think, the Citizen Assistance Program, correct? So there is something at the county level, but it wouldn't be within Englewood, but they would be able to help those seeking help to help pay for some of the bills, which include water and some of the other things that are showing up on your bill. So if you do want to reach out to them, Mr. Khan, I suggest you do so. And then lastly, Ms. Zierke, thank you very much for coming tonight to speaking about the youth programs and looking at another committee. I will be asking this council later on tonight if this is something that they want to consider. I may also ask you to come and read these proclamations for me here in future sessions, because you did an outstanding job tonight to speak on the subject. And I do suggest that maybe we may have a liaison as part of this youth program if we ever put it in place. I would suggest Mayor Pro Tem Ward, because he did state earlier that he does have, while he may be older, he does have a 12-year-old sense of humor. So, but no, I appreciate it, Ms. Zierke, for coming tonight, and thank you very much for your words. Great job. And that now concludes unscheduled public comment. Does anybody need a break, or are we good to move forward? Need a couple minutes? We're gonna take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 7:10. Thank you so much.
Woodward. Woodward.
Council, if we can be seated. Oh, there we go.
Well, if we do that, I am loading it up.
Not last.
All right, thank you, everyone. We are now back, and actually, we were going to go back to public comment as Miss Danielle Carr has shown up, but now she is once again missing. So, members of council, did we want to wait for Miss Carr to give her presentation? Oh, there she is. She's out in the lobby. All right, so we'll go back to scheduled public comment. Ms. Carr will have 5 minutes to speak about single hauler. Good evening, Ms. Carr. If you could just state your name and your address or your cross streets.
Okay, I'm Danielle Carr, and I live. Okay. Danielle Carr, and I live at Galapago and Layton. I have submitted a testimony that was read a couple weeks ago at the other meeting, but I still have those same concerns with the trash collection being not my choice. I really do feel that it is important for us, not only as American citizens, but just as citizens in this, city of Englewood that is older, is laid out differently than some of the newer neighborhoods like Highlands Ranch or something, where we're all different. We have different alleys, we have different entryways, we have a very long dirt driveway, and our house is set towards the back of the house. Joe's been there. It's a wonky house. It's very weird. And so when I heard we're gonna go streamlining into this new trash collection thing, I'm just like, no, our home is just situated very weird. And I know that there's a lot of a lot of neighbors in my block that are the same way. They're elderly, and maybe they have a system. We also have, bills that we know that we can pay. And I really do feel it's wrong for the city to mandate something like this for all of us to just have to comply with. It goes back to the mandates that we all dealt with that I didn't agree with either. We should not be mandated. Things are not one size fits all. We are American citizens with freedoms that we should be able to make our own choices. If I choose to compost, if I choose to recycle, that is up to me, not the council, not just a few people that are sitting here and feel that you have the right to make decisions for the rest of Englewood. So I really don't feel it's wise in the better Englewood. I don't think it would make it better. So just please take into consideration that there are special circumstances that some of us have, and income or not, it's just the way we live, and I think we should have our own decision, our own ability to make our own decisions. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Carr, for speaking tonight.
Cheryl Wink, Councilmember Wink has her hand up.
Member Wink, you have the first question.
Thank you, City Clerk. Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Carr, are you aware that we are only investigating options for a single hauler trash solution because citizens asked us to examine the option? Are you aware of that, or?
No, I was not made aware that this is.
Okay.
been asked
Were
as
you
an
aware?
option.
Were you aware that we also have explored and found options that would support citizens that would have trouble making the financial adjustment if such a decision were made to move to the single hauler trash service? Were you aware of that?
No, but again, I don't feel
Okay.
it's just a financial decision. I don't think it should just be financial.
Not what I was saying, just asking if you were aware. Okay. And you're aware that no decision has been made, correct, or will be made tonight? Is that correct?
I was under the assumption the decision was going to be made on April 18th or 19th, whichever.
Okay, thank you so much. Just wanted to make sure. So many discussions have been made, Ms. Carr, and there are so many pieces of rumor and misinformation. So I only wanted to ask to make sure you at least had, the facts clear. So, and I appreciate your engagement and certainly for coming here tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Member
I
Wink.
did take the survey, so that wasn't addressed in the survey.
Right.
So that would have been helpful to have known.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Carr? Ms. Carr, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And we are now moving on to consent agenda items, and we are pulling 9A1 and 9C1. Anyone need to pull 9A2, or are we good with that? I think we are good. So can I get a motion to approve 9A2?
I move to approve 9A2.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Kemp. Could I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Kemp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Consent agenda 9A1, Council Bill 16, Member Russell. Do you have any questions for staff?
Thank you. I do have a few questions for staff on this. I was just curious, because we've been doing this for quite a while, how much of the available funds for E3 were dispersed last year? How much of it was returned to the county? And if yes, how much was returned for administrative funds?
Good evening. So Will Charles, I'm with the Planner with Community Development Department. As far as the funds, the general answer to that is all of it was spent by the city. Our funding for last year was approximately $115,000, so right in line with this year. So all of that was spent, as well as the and that $115,000 is $19,000 for admin costs, and that was all expended as well.
And
so
how
none
many
returned to the county.
And how many projects were there last year?
There were 12 last year.
12.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, for approximately 8,000 a piece.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, Member Russell, are you able to make the motion?
I really don't want to make the motion. Traditionally, I have not supported CBDG grant funds, so.
That's fine, Member
all right,
Russell. I
thank
shouldn't
you.
put you on the spot like that. Anyone like to make a motion for 9A1?
I'll make a motion for 9A1.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any other questions or any other comments? Member Russell.
I'm not going to be supporting this mainly because of the CBDG grant funds and the issues that I have with that. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. No other comment? Member Woodward, did you have a comment?
Yes, I will be supporting it. I think that any time we can get community development block grant funding, and although we are not an entitlement city simply because of our population, we do get it awarded through the county. And it's too many things that have happened in this city that, good things that have resulted from that. A couple that aren't just housing and energy are the Paseos over on Broadway. Pretty good amount of that was funded by CBDG funds, so.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Seeing no other comments, can we please vote?
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Member Wink.
Aye.
Member Woodward.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Russell.
Thank you, City Clerk. And now moving on to 9C1, the Walk and Wheel Master Plan update. Member Russell, you have a question for Senior Planner John Berber.
I really don't have any questions. I just really was not happy with moving forward with these adjustments, I mean, on some of them. So I guess the one question that I have, just would you remind me what's going on with the Dartmouth bike lanes? Are we leaving the bike lanes on Dartmouth, or are we eventually going to be moving them to Floyd?
I believe that the Dartmouth bike lanes are here to stay, and that the idea is to create another facility on Floyd Avenue that will be more attractive to families with small children as an alternative to Dartmouth. But then the high-speed bikers who still want to fly through Dartmouth can still do that.
And just one other question, are we going to move forward with traffic circles at Dartmouth and Downing, Dartmouth and Clarkson, and Dartmouth and Logan?
I do not consider the Dartmouth Traffic Circle project as a walk and wheel project per se. It's not within this plan, the master plan, nor in the master plan update. It is a project that, as I understood it from Public Works traffic engineer who no longer is with the city, that it was a traffic signalization replacement project. They would have to address the bicycle lanes in some fashion with that project, but it is really not a walk and wheel project per se.
Okay, and then I guess I'm concerned about, I'm not concerned about alternative mobility, but I'm concerned about cars. And because we still have cars and people still do need to get to work and cannot ride bicycles. So I am concerned about the direction that this is going. So, all right, thank you very much. I appreciate those answers.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 9C1?
I move to
I move
approve
to
9C1.
approve. Yep.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Member Wink. Any other comments from council? Seeing none, please vote.
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Member Wink.
Aye.
Member Woodward.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Russell.
Thank you, City Clerk. There is no public hearing tonight. Moving on to ordinance resolutions and motions. 11A1 is authorize a local festival permit. Here tonight is City Attorney Tamara Niles to talk about the ordinance on the local festival permit.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we first discussed this issue at a study session, and we were directed to bring back an ordinance implementing a local festival permit. Some of these slides are repeats of what we presented previously, just so everyone in the room or maybe watching online will have some background of this matter as well. This is a new Colorado law which authorizes an alcohol festival permit, and it also authorizes cities to create a local permit. if we don't create a local permit, the festivals can still happen in our community. We just may not receive notice, and we won't have the ability to regulate it or discuss with the organizers to make sure they comply with city law. This new law does authorize up to 9 festivals in a 12-month period. Each festival no longer than 72 hours, and participants can serve alcohol at the festival, even if they're licensed, say, at a restaurant in Littleton. They can come to Englewood and participate in a festival. And I should say, of course, our own Englewood licensees can participate. And so I just provided some examples of what we may expect. Maybe distillers from around the state come for a liquor festival or something like that. And again, I do want to reiterate, even if we don't adopt a local festival permit, it's still allowed under state law. The proposed ordinance in your packet tonight amends 2 sections of municipal code to create the festival permit. One thing that I specifically didn't include on this slide is I also crossed through the requirement that council shall set the fees by resolution. For example, the reason I did that is so that if you adopted an amendment to a fee schedule, for example, that could be by motion, or what I propose is that it be done by ordinance within the adopting ordinance. But as written, code currently requires a resolution, but it seems that we should be able to do it in a more formal ordinance that can be challenged by the citizens, which is why I crossed that out in the proposal. The reason we wanted to discuss this in more detail rather than just maybe include this on the consent agenda is so that we can discuss the proposed fees for the permit. And we varied the fees based on who the licensees are, who the licensees are. And we discussed this specifically at the study session, because we can't treat Englewood licensees different than outside of the city unless there's a specific reason to do that. So when I consulted with the city clerk, I determined and learned that we contain in-house all the records for our Englewood licensees. So let's say someone applies for a festival permit within the city, and it's 5 restaurants that currently have a liquor license within the city. Well, it's very easy for our city clerk to determine if they have valid liquor license, that they haven't had any violations, because we already have all those records. It's just a matter of looking them up in our own files. Now, if there are licensees from other cities, then we have to contact those cities to make sure their licenses are valid and in good standing. So it takes quite a bit more time for city staff to determine if the participants in the festival are eligible under state law to participate. So we propose a different fee for licensees that are not already licensed in the city of Englewood. So I'll give you an example of how this would work. Let's say the permit is for a 1-day festival on a Saturday. The base fee is $150 for the permit. Let's say it's 4 Englewood licensees and 1 licensee from Colorado Springs. In that case, we would charge an additional $50 for the Colorado Springs licensee, because we have to contact the city of Colorado Springs. We have to do all this investigation for their license, track it down. It will take quite a bit of time for the city clerks to do that. So that is our proposal. Now, they can have more than 1 festival. Again, they can have up to 9 in a 12-month period. So we have a supplemental application fee. If they want the second festival for the same thing in the city of Englewood, it will be just $50 instead of $150, because we've already investigated all of it. And then $50 for each new licensee participant that is not a city of Englewood licensee, for the same reason. City clerks have to call and track down their background and make sure they're valid and active and in good standing with the state. Then a supplemental application fee if the prior festival was held outside of Englewood. Let's say there was a very successful festival in Colorado Springs, so they want to bring it to the metro and have it in Englewood. Well, we haven't previously investigated the application, we haven't set parameters for it, so we would propose a $100 supplemental fee if the first one was outside of Englewood, and then again that $50 participant fee if they're not a city of Englewood licensee, to account for the staff time required to investigate. Then we would also propose for each additional day after the first day a $50 fee, just because it requires staff time to monitor it, make sure they're complying with any stipulations, such as don't know, let's say if we required fencing to make sure it's safe with people posted at every entrance for staff monitoring, police monitoring. So just kind of provide us a little bit of concession for that, but it certainly isn't something that we would make money on. These are fees are solely intended just to compensate us for a little bit of our time, but we don't anticipate it's enough to actually, for us to break even, let alone make money. But we hadn't previously talked about any specific fees, so that's why I wanted to bring it forward today. So next I have questions, and I'll leave the screen up because I anticipate you may have more questions about the fees than anything else.
Thank you, City Attorney Niles. Any questions from council? Member Woodward.
I have just one, what I think is a real simple question. On page 1 of the staff report, under summary, it says the proposed bill for an ordinance amends municipal court to create a local permit. Should that be a municipal court or a municipal code?
It should be municipal code. I apologize for the typo.
Okay.
I take responsibility for that. We're also involved in municipal court, so
Yeah,
I'm sure that was my error.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Member Noonkip.
Thank you for the presentation and for the fee structure, which is particularly helpful. Do we have any sense, I understand that this is a new state, option. Have other municipalities done their own permit fee structure, and are we in line with what other municipalities are charging? Do you have a sense of that, or how they're structuring it?
So I know cities across the state have been adopting these. I have not seen their permit structure because we were concerned at looking at what our costs would be. And so that's how we came up with the permit structure, or the fine structure rather, fine. Still thinking about municipal court, Councilmember Woodward. And so all we looked at is how much time we anticipated we would take, and then we looked at our current structure for charging for permits in similar situations. And that's how we came up with it, to make sure we were consistent and charging people a fair price.
That's helpful, thank you.
Thank you, Member Noonkip. Mayor Pro Tem.
I have kind of a technical question, I suspect. So in the regular course of business, a liquor licensee who does something that runs in violation of the law is subject to a show cause, where they come before our hearing officer and they basically answer for why they should still hold their permit after committing this alleged offense. In the case of an outside city licensee who does something that violates the law during a festival which takes place in the city of Englewood, do we have the authority to bring that licensee in for a show cause, or is there any extension to their local license in the municipality where they're located based on the festival participation?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a good answer to that because this is so new. There's never been a festival permit issued. So we did reach out directly to the state for guidance, and they provided us the statute, which of course we already have. But it's silent on a lot of the details. But I will tell you how I anticipate it would work, with the caveat that nobody has tried it yet. If someone does violate any applicable liquor-related law while participating in our festival, we would notify the state and we would notify their licensing jurisdiction, which may or may not be a city because it may be the state. And then we would allow them to take the requisite actions on that license. Potentially, someone, depending on what the offense is, someone could be prosecuted in municipal court if they violate a city law. But because we don't issue their license, I wouldn't anticipate it would be subject to our licensing authority.
Okay, I guess one of the things that I would want to make sure of, I'm comfortable with the structure here, but I wouldn't want anyone to think that they could come into our city and behave in a way that was different from the way that they behaved when they were in their own city, because we don't have the ability to mete out the same consequences. So I think I'd be more comfortable if I could see some clarity on that in our ordinance, relative to either engaging in some sort of IGA or having the licensee sign something that says, I understand that, the state licensing authority would have jurisdiction in this matter. And I don't know how many licenses the state licensing authority revokes or penalizes on an annual basis, but that adding some teeth, I think, would make me more comfortable overall.
Well, what we envisioned internally, and again, we are all just kind of making our own way, is that we would have each participant sign a form administratively, recognizing their obligations under state law. We would also work with the organizer to come up with the requirements, the location, things that would ensure compliance with state law. We would anticipate we would have each of the participants sign that to acknowledge their obligations, and then that is something we could present to the state and present to if they have a local licensing jurisdiction.
Sounds good, thank you.
Member Russell.
Thank you. So do we have any idea what fees the state is gonna charge?
No, we were unable to get that information. And unless the clerks have received something, we've asked a few times, and so far we've each time we've just been referred to the state statute, which does not include a fee schedule. What I would anticipate is if the state does issue its fee schedule and it's significantly higher or significantly lower, I think we would consider revising ours at the time, or at that time, but we just don't have anything to go on right now.
Okay, and I guess that's what I was asking, so I'm open to that. Maybe the state's not gonna charge.
I feel that would be unlikely, but it's certainly possible. They seem to charge for quite a few things.
Right. Okay, so, but even if we pass it, we can go back and revisit it if we need to change the fee schedule.
Absolutely, and because we are changing the applicable code that requires a revision by resolution, we could actually just adopt a revision by motion.
Okay, thank you.
Once this ordinance goes into effect.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve Council Bill 18?
I move to approve CB 18.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Any comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Member Wink,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you, City Clerk. Moving on to ordinances on second reading. Up first is Council Bill 17, the Plan Unit Development at 3600 South Galapago. Up tonight is City Planner Will Charles. Good evening.
Good evening. Second time in one night. I don't have anything to add for the evening. Just as always, I'm here if you have any questions along with members of staff as well as the applicant team. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Any questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve Council Bill 17?
Move
I'll
to
move
approve
Council
CB.
Bill 17.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any comments from council? Member Russell.
Thank you very much, and I am still incredibly disappointed that we did not get the accident report from Galapago and 285. I'm very concerned that this particular property will impact that particular intersection more than the rest of them. This is just one of 3 properties that Metro Residential Advisors have put into place in the last month and a half. It will increase density in our industrial area rather than council working out thoughtful zoning process changes. City Council is piecemealing this area of the city together. Increasing density increases crime, it impacts traffic, and it puts stress on our infrastructure, so I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Any other comments from council? I'll just jump in. Mr. Cudlett, this may be the last time we see you here, at least within the chambers for the near future, but I want to thank you and your team for all the work that you guys have put forth over the past year or however long it's been over the 3 developments that you have put forward here in front of council. So I want to thank you, and I will be in support of this tonight. Seeing no other comments from council, can we please vote?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Member Wink,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Charles, and thank you very much, Mr. Cudlett, and to MRA. Thank you. Moving on to 11C1, staff recommends City Council approve by motion a contract with Summers Construction. for 2022 alley grading and stabilization project in the amount of $565,481.40. Up tonight is Deputy Director Tim Hoos and Capital Projects Engineer Devin Keener. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tim Host, Deputy Director of Public Works for Engineering and Asset Management. Devin is going to go over a brief PowerPoint summarizing this item, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this item.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Capital Project Engineer Devin Keener with Public Works, and tonight I'm going to be discussing the 2022 alley grading and stabilization project for zones 3, 4, and 5. Just got to pull up the presentation. All right, moving on to the next slide here. So the purpose of this project follows 3 main points, that being alley maintenance, which ensures that we take care of our potholes, deterioration that we experience throughout the year, citizen requests, and improved drainage, which means cutting in the V channel. This keeps runoff in the middle of the alley and it directs it to the streets. And then the final step that we have is improving the durability of the streets, and that is through the use of the application of a soil stabilizer. Am I going the right way? Let's see. So here in the center right part of the screen, you can see that we've got a cross section of what the alley grading looks like. You have that V channel there in the middle, and then we have a rock channel in the very center of that alley. And we're trying to direct all of the flow to the very center of the alley, which slows down the deterioration process that we experience in our alleys. So to give you some background and context of where we're at on this project currently, so in 2019, we finished Zone 2. In 2020, we finished grading Zone 1. In 2021, we got 75% of the way through that zone, Zone 4. We got 25% left of it. With this project we're presenting in front of you today, we're going to complete zones 3, 4, and 5, and that's going to ensure that all of the remaining alleys in the city have this V channel cut into them, and to make sure that they all have the soil stabilizer applied to them. And then going forward, we believe that the streets division is going to be able to maintain the alleys into the future. So on the screen here, you can just see just kind of a project map of what we're going to be doing. So this is Zone 3. Zone 3 is the bulk of the work for this project. I think in total we've got around like 80 alleys that we're going to be doing this project. So 61 of those alleys are going to be in Zone 3. And then here in the project map, you can see that the brown colored lines are the alleys that we're going to be grading. And here is Zone 4. As I stated earlier, 75% was completed last year. Then some winter weather set in. We've got 25% of the alleys left currently. And this map just shows the ones that are kind of at the northeast section that we're going to be doing this project. Then Zone 5 has almost no alleys in it to be graded. So we've got 3 in this one. Now to discuss the analysis of the contractor proposal. One second here. So we received one bid from Summers Construction, and that was 22% less than our engineer estimate. And so we feel that this price is very reasonable in regards to pricing that we've seen in the past. So staff feels comfortable moving forward with the price that we received, even though we only received one bid on the work. In terms of the schedule on the project, so we're currently slated to start in June, and then we're gonna be complete in October of 2022. The picture on the left, you can see the soil stabilizer being applied, and then on the right, this is what it looks like when we cut that V channel in. So in summary, staff recommends City Council approve the 2022 alley grading and stabilization contract with Summers Construction for zones 3, 4, and 5. And at this time, I'd like to ask if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Keener, for the presentation. Starting off with Member Russell with questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So on the first 2 pages, were those before and after pictures of the same alley?
Yeah, let me go back. These two right here?
No, clear back at the very beginning.
Okay. Let me keep going back here.
That one and that one.
I don't believe that these are the same alleys here.
So.
But this is what you can expect typically. So we might have a little bit of overgrowth in the middle, and this is what it might look like before, and this is what it would look like after.
Okay, so I guess right now, city is cleaning up all the trees and everything when we're going through and doing this?
Yes, ma'am.
Because code requires that citizens take care of that. So, and that will be a question for staff later. The other question is that the company went out of business, and so we hired most of their workers as part-time seasonal.
That is correct.
So we didn't pay benefits or anything.
We paid them an hourly wage. They were contracted as seasonal employees.
Okay, so but they were paid out of the fees that would have been paid to their company had their company not gone out of business.
That is my understanding, yes.
And did we spend all of the money? Or what happened to that money?
We did not spend all of the money, no. So we've got a little bit of a budget surplus on this project. So on the budget slide, we had estimated that this was going to cost around $600,000, and the bid that we got is in the low fives. So we're going to have a budget surplus on this, and we didn't spend all of the budget from Zone 4 last year.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think that's all the questions that I have right now.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward.
Is going back to the alley that's shown there and the tree and bush trimming, that's part of the bid, so the city isn't doing that. The contractor's doing that, correct?
That's correct. The contractor is doing it.
Okay, yeah, I see that $16,700. The soil stabilizer, which is the stuff that comes out of the tank truck, I assume.
Yes, that's what was shown in that truck.
What is that product?
So it's a mixture of magnesium chloride and water, I believe. Then we've got a certain percentage that we specify for magnesium chloride in that mixture.
Okay, and with regarding environmental, is that safe environmentally? Is it safe for pets and wildlife?
So we have a product sheet that I can provide to council after this that talks about all the safety information in terms of the product that we're using.
Okay, I didn't get a product sheet, I believe, in my packet.
It's something that we can provide after.
I would like to have that. I know
Certainly.
there's been some question, I noticed last year during the summer and stuff, of people making statements on social media regarding about how it can poison your dogs and this sort of thing. And I'd like to be able to address that.
Yes, certainly. And in the past, I think that the application was not applied here at the city, but it was standard practice to have a higher concentration of magnesium chloride in this stabilizer. And what we specify in our specifications for the project is a very diluted amount of this magnesium chloride. Does address some of the concerns that we've also heard from citizens about putting down magnesium chloride, which is it's a soil stabilizer, dust suppressant.
Okay. But if you could email me or whatever with that cut sheet or that sheet, I would appreciate it because I wasn't on council last year and stuff. Question, has anybody evaluated the completed work this spring that was done last year, last fall?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think that we've had a certain program where we've had an inspector go out there and check off every alley. We have had less calls than we did last year coming from that area and from the city in general that I've noticed. So the program does seem to be working as we planned.
Okay. And then my other question here was, is there an inspection after an alley is done or a group of alleys? Is there an actual city inspection that goes out and checks that work and verifies that that work is completed as it's spec'd?
Yes, that's part of every capital improvement project. We have an inspector that's tied to that project that goes out to ensure that the contractor did meet the plans and the specs of the project.
Okay, is that one time or is that?
It's for every alley. So once an alley gets done, then the inspector will go out there and then our inspector will sign off on that alley.
Yeah, it seems to me like I've noticed last fall as kind of watching them, it was in my neighborhood or my area, although my alley didn't get done. And I was noticing it seemed like it wasn't consistent with the spray going down. It would be going down first and then they would be grading. And I thought, well, that doesn't seem to make any sense unless it's to keep this dust down and the dirt down. But stabilization is different than that, I think.
It's the same thing. It's a dust suppressant, and it also stabilizes the soil. It's acts as kind of a dual purpose.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
Those were all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Back to Member Russell.
Thank you. Actually, the things that Councilmember Woodward asked were kind of jogged my memory too. So this is a different company than we've used in the past. When they did our area, they would not turn off the spigot when they came out on the street and several streets. And there were a lot of complaints in our neighborhood and asking them to come out and clean up. So will we be more careful about that this time?
Yes, and I actually wrote it or drew it into the plans this time that we start 3 feet back from the sidewalk and that we have an inspector out there following behind this truck to just make sure that they're not continuing forward and that they're not just dripping it into the street. And we're going to get a little bit of that, not from the truck per se, but when people back up and they're driving into the alley and driving out of the alley, it does track a little bit. So there's only so much that we can do. But as far as ensuring that this truck doesn't drip or track more out, that's something that we're going to be a lot more aware of this time around. We've made provisions for.
Okay, thank you very much.
One question for me, Mr. Keener, are there, for this program, are there alleys that that better hold their shape than other alleys? And the only reason why I ask this is that I noticed that alleys that have more of a slope seem to get rutted out much quicker. And I'm just kind of curious, is that what you guys have observed, or is this just an issue that we're going to have to, or am I wrong in just what I've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the treatment of the alley and what we've done to it. So if we put the rock channel down the center of a steeper alley, that's typically the alleys that we've seen that have held up the best. So anytime we can just get the water off the alley, then they typically hold up better. So the steeper ones hold up a little bit better than the flatter ones. And it seems that the flatter ones actually deteriorate a little bit quicker. But if we have a steep alley and it doesn't have a rock channel down the middle, we do experience rutting. And sometimes it's just in hindsight, we'll come back and we'll say, okay, well, this seemed like a little bit steeper of an alley, so we need to put some rock channel here. And so Mother Nature kind of tells us where it needs to go, where some of the improvements need to be.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Keener. Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Keener. Is there built into this budget some money to go back and repair alleys that have deteriorated that were done in previous years? Or would that happen under a different, what do we do to go back and maintain those alleys that have deteriorated more quickly?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we've got a minor contract revisions budget. I believe that we have about $50,000 in that. We are tracking right now some of the, I guess, more worse shape alleys that were in Zone 1. And so that's on our schedule to go back and repair with this project. Like I said before, our estimate on this project was, $600,000 plus. That was the engineer estimate, and then the bid came in at $500,000. So we have a lot of wiggle room in here if we, need to spend a little bit more on some alley maintenance outside of zones 3, 4, and 5. But it is also our plan to have the streets division tackle as many of the citizen requests as possible, and the larger requests that are beyond potholing that maybe our streets division can't get to. That's what we're going to focus on with the contractor for 3, 4, and 5 here.
And is the streets division able to go back and put in that alley, that channel, and put in the rock, or are they just repairing rutting and potholes and those kind of things?
Yes, it really depends on their schedule. I've seen them able to come in and put in road-based asphalt millings. I've seen them be able to put in long sections of rock channel. It all just determines on the staff's availability, how many citizen requests that we have. They are able to respond faster to just more minor issues, which just makes sense. And when they have something that's a little bit larger, like 300-foot section of the alley, half the alley, that's when they really need to rely on our contractor to come in and help with that work.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Member Woodward.
A couple more questions. Do you know what the yearly cost of our alley maintenance was before this program started?
That is a good question. I am not sure what that is. Public Works Director Maria might be able to answer that one.
Thank you, Member Woodward. We did not track that. We are now tracking that through our asset management system on a better basis, but we don't have a real good comparison. I know when our street and operations manager first started, I think in 2019, we had over 120 Q alert requests, crew alert requests from council or from citizens. And so we've been monitoring those as far as number of requests, and those have gone down steadily throughout the year. So I think it is still a learning process between streets and what we're doing through this project to try and minimize both the costs and the number of requests that we get.
Okay. Are we doing any maintenance on, well, let's say last year, if there was a alley in that the residents were calling on and it wasn't in the program for last year, did it get graded or get worked on?
They do. So we have, I don't know how many Q alerts we have right now, but we've gotten several this spring that street staff is working on. And so until the contractor is on board, street staff is taking care of those and doing the best they can to get that water to flow out to either end of the alley.
Great, thank you. And yeah, I know in the past, and I mean prior to this, it was kind of done on an as-needed basis or as-complained basis, which for me it was working. was working on my alley.
Good, yeah.
My alley hasn't been touched in, I'm gonna guess, 3 years. So it looks like the one with the weeds growing down the middle. They're not up yet, but they'll be there. The last question I have are we still recycling used asphalt into the road base or whatever we're putting down there?
We are. So the materials that we get from our mill and overlay, we do save those out at the service center site. We have gotten some larger chunks, bigger pieces, and so we've taken some time to screen those out. So we're evaluating if that makes sense to then use those as road base or material back in our back. We fill in utility patches using some of that material. And so we're evaluating if that continues to make economic sense. But otherwise, we would have to buy materials. So we do try and use that as much as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I've recently found out that alley work can be a little bit of a surprise to some residents, particularly as it has the potential, if we're raising or lowering the alley, to affect their access to the alley. What are we doing to ensure that through the course of this project, residents who use their alley on a regular basis can maintain access to the alley and we're not, for instance, blocking a fence or changing a gate or something similar to that?
Yeah, so during the alley grading process, we generate excess soil as the blades are pushing. It's our intent to remove that soil so that it doesn't block fences and people being able to get into their driveways. Unfortunately, it does happen from time to time, and then we do get phone calls, and then that's the only way that we hear about it, or we might see it, and it doesn't seem like it's very high to us as or to me as the project manager or to the inspector. But then anytime that we get a call, we always go back out there and we try and make it right for the customer. So we'll see, what the issue is and try and come to a solution with them out in the field.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11C1?
I move to approve 11C1.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Kemp. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any comments? Seeing none, can we please, Member Woodward?
Yeah, I was just going to mention regarding Mayor Pro Tem Ward's question. There was, as I recall and looking at the description of the bid opening and stuff, a line item that addressed, I think, part of what he was discussing, lowering or whatever to meet grades. So if somebody's garage is built up higher or lower, that they've got it in here, I believe, to account for that and take care of it.
Thank you, Member Woodward.
Yeah, Member Woodward, I think that actually refers to the alley itself. So the condition that I recently witnessed, that alley was actually raised in height by about a foot with infill. And city staff knows about this, so I'm not sharing anything that is inappropriate. But there was a resident who had a gate that was now a foot under what the alley height was. And that was the specific portion of my question.
See no other comments, can we please vote?
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonan-Kemp.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Member Wink.
Aye.
Member Woodward.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Moving on to 11C2, staff recommends City Council approve a resolution for a contract with Berg Camp for one pothole patch truck in the amount of $168,785. Up again is, oh no, this time it's on the other side of the sheet. Mr. Ortega and Fleet Supervisor Brian Thompson. Who's taking the lead? Good evening, Mr. Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I appreciate you listening to me tonight. I'm Brian Thompson. I'm the Fleet Supervisor. Okay, so yeah, so Fleet Services, we'd like to purchase a pothole patch truck. It'd be used in the Streets Division. Currently, Streets Division does not have a pothole patch truck at all, and so they use what we call the standard throw and roll method, which usually is a cold fill, and usually this type of repair, you know, requires workers to come back and repair the same pothole over and over again. So we'd like to eliminate that. Last year, we averaged between 500 to 600 pothole repairs. So it's a substantial number that we'd like to decrease. The addition of this unit to the Streets Division will help, you know, give the Streets Division all the tools they need to get their job done. As far as the financial implications go, basically, since this is a new unit to the fleet, it's not a new unit, but it will be added on and not something we currently have to replace. There wouldn't be any SURF funds for it. However, we have 2 vehicles or pieces of equipment that we're no longer going to use within the Streets Division, or we don't need to replace at this time at all. And between those 2 units, we have $144,985 collected. So we'd like to use these funds to go towards the purchase, and the remaining $23,800 would come from the Road and Bridge Fund. So staff would recommend to purchase this pothole patch truck using Burkamp at a total cost of $168,785. Again, the unit's not brand new. The reason this unit is so inexpensive is because it's actually a demo unit that Burkamp used to help sell their product to countries throughout the nation. This unit comes with $109,290 savings over the cost of a new one. A new unit would be $278,075. So again, this unit would cost us $168,785. And it will provide everything we need to get all these potholes repaired in the correct way to do so. If we do get approval tonight to purchase and move forward with this item, we will add it to the SURF fund going forward so we can replace it when it is due at the end of its useful life and continue to utilize this type of equipment within the Streets Division. And with that, I'm going to try to keep it short for you guys. I know it's getting late, but that's,
No, you did great.
That's all I have.
You're just trying to get to the game, aren't you?
Fire away.
Mr. Thompson, thank you very much for that presentation. Member Newcamp.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My question, you referenced there's the way we're filling potholes now, and that this would change that. Can you help me understand the life span of the way we're currently filling a pothole, when it would need to be filled again, and then how this would improve it? How much longer would it last?
Yeah, so like I said, the throw and roll method or the cold fill, basically every time a car drives over it, you're going to lose a little bit of that pothole. And so we've had to come back sometimes within 2 or 3 days of filling this up and refilling it again. What the pothole patch does is it heats up the material and provides a hot mix to where we can put that in and it adheres to the road and makes a much better, seal, a more permanent way of doing it. And Steve can talk to how long it'll last.
Good evening. Excuse my voice. I lost my voice over the weekend. So Steve Ortega, I'm the maintenance and operations manager. So with the patch truck, we could actually do what we call a permanent repair, which will we square up the patch and actually excavate it down. So when we throw and roll, it's basically all we do is get the asphalt, throw it in, roll it in. But with the patch truck, we have, we could square it up with the jackhammer, remove the material, and then patch it back, just like if we were doing a utility cut.
Thank you.
Yes.
Member Russell.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. The 2 vehicles that you removed from service, did you remove them from service with the intention of purchasing this? Or did you remove them from service and they've just been sitting there?
I misspoke a little bit. We didn't absolutely remove them from service. We just don't use them very often at all to where it deems us needing to replace them. And they will be phased out probably within the next 5 or 6 years.
So even if we kept things the way they were, would you still not use them, or do you use them for the way things are right now?
No, these have no relation to the pothole repairs.
Okay, and then I noticed something else in the packet, that it will keep the asphalt warm for up to 3 days. I mean, does it take fuel to keep it warm?
Yeah, it runs off of propane, I believe. So it's basically it's like an infrared heater that keeps the whole unit warm. 3 days is going to be probably a little too long with that. I do have some experience with it. We're looking more like 24 to 48 hours. And the reason why we would really want to do that is just because some of the asphalt plants, they tend to close down unexpectedly. So if we get, a ton or 2 tons of asphalt, that'll kind of help us out to be able to reuse that material the next day.
So cost-wise, will it actually save us money in the long run by buying the pothole machine? And how long will it take us to recover the cost that we're saving?
Yeah, so typically when we go with cold patch, we're spending about $180, somewhere around there, for a bag of cold patch Easy Street. With this, we'll be able to use hot mix asphalt, which is around $45 to $50 per ton, and then again, being able to keep that material and use all of that material rather than throwing it out. I think that's going to help us save money as well. And the fact that we're actually going and doing a permanent repair compared to just a temporary repair where we're going to have to come back and refill. So again, we patch anywhere from about 500 to 600 potholes per year. So if we could get at least half of those, or somewhat close to half of those, repaired per year without having to go back and refill, I think we're going to start seeing our money being saved.
Okay, and then just one other thing, from the budget perspective, I have a little bit of concern that we're getting the money from several different places. One of them is from the Road and Bridge Fund. We've been waiting forever for the Dartmouth Bridge. I know that we're working on that now. Are we going to be taking monies out that should be used for some other project, and it's gonna kick the can down the road on the other things, like the Dartmouth Bridge project, for one?
Yeah, I'll answer that one, Member Russell. We use the Road and Bridge Fund for roadway projects, but it also is where we fund our annual road maintenance materials costs. So our cost of asphalt actually comes from that fund as well. So to your previous question about are we saving money, we think we are going to save money, and we think it's an appropriate use of Road and Bridge because that's where we pay for our asphalt materials from that staff uses year in and year out. Road base, asphalt, any kind of materials that streets uses, and we supplement that each year through the budget process, specifically for those materials, as well as our annual payment maintenance program.
Okay, so just one other question. I mean, because this came forward, what, 3 years ago? We looked at,
4 years, I think, yeah.
was
no.
it, yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. So, are we really in a different place financially than we were?
At that time, yes, we were planning to purchase a brand new one. So the cost, I think we were planning around the $250,000 mark, or whatever Mr. Thompson had shown. And we think that this demo unit is a really good option for us because it has every bell and whistle on it. And obviously it was their staff that was using it for demo, so it's not been worn down a lot. And so we think this is a great deal for us. It's a cost-effective way to get this unit in without spending the full amount, and utilizing that remaining funds from the Road and Bridge account is a reasonable thing to do.
Okay, and do we have the staff to, I mean, we're using our own staff anyway that way.
Yep, and our staff has actually used this demo, I believe, correct? Yeah.
And it's something, again, excuse my voice, it's something that my staff has been requesting for several years now. Again, doing the throw and roll, it's kind of, you have to do it because you have to get that pothole filled, but it's not the correct way to do it. So, they take pride in their work, and this is going to give them the avenue to do that. So I think it's going to actually increase morale within the street division.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Woodward.
Yes, I have a question on is there a warranty on this, specifically the truck or the chassis?
There is. We have a 6-month all-inclusive warranty on this, and the nice thing about the timing on this, if this does get approved, and because it's a demo unit, it is already made, so we can get it pretty much immediately once the funding's approved. And this is the right time of year where we can start knocking out a lot of these potholes. So we'll get to put that warranty to its, a full test. It's not like we'll have to sit through winter for 6 months and then start using it and have the warranty expire. So we'll really get to test it out and see, how the equipment and everything else holds up.
Okay, and well, on the vehicle of the Freightliner, it being a used Freightliner, with 140,000 miles
Yes.
on it currently. I mean, I'm used to cars. I don't know anything about trucks, especially
Sure.
big trucks. How many miles are we looking at on this?
On a heavy duty piece of equipment, diesel engine like this on a Freightliner, really you should expect anywhere from 300 to 500,000 miles out of this chassis. There's an old saying, you know, at 100,000 miles it's just breaking in. So I'm very confident we'll get the 10 to 12 years we want to get out of this machine before we have the SURF funds available to purchase a new one. So I don't think that should be an issue at all. And on top of that, I believe the city's just under 7 square miles, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
You drive this to the scene, you park it, and you utilize the back of it. You know, it's not like a plow truck that's driving up and down miles and miles of laneways to clear pathways. So I think the mileage that's going to be put on this going forward is going to be very minimal.
Okay. All right. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just one question. I'd like to hear the story about how you found this unit and how you
Sure.
came about buying a used unit.
Well, as Councilmember Russell mentioned, we did try to purchase this one. It was slightly before my time here with the city, but we tried to purchase them before. I've reached out to Bergkamp and Owens Equipment over the last couple years on getting quotes on new models. And at that time, we just didn't see it feasible with the funding and of course, the cost of the new equipment. And so the rep from Bergkamp, after she was done demoing it, reached out to me actually, knowing that I was, we're in the market to purchase a new one. And she said, this might be a good alternative for you. We have this used one. I'm reaching out to my clients who I think might benefit from it. Here's our pricing. And so I asked her to supply me a new quote and kind of compare, oranges to oranges and just see how it worked out. So that lady over there actually contacted me and let me know that there is opportunity for it.
I have to say, that's really impressive to me. I'm always gratified when I see that the relationships that our staff members have built with the vendors and the community pay off to the tune of $110,000 in this case.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
Good get. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Way to be persistent, Mr. Thompson. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11C2?
I move to approve 11C2.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Any additional comments? Member Noonekamp.
I'll just concur with my colleagues. I really appreciate the innovation and the relationship building from staff to get the city this deal. Our Colorado weather puts a real beating on our roads, and we obviously hear it from our community, and I'm excited to see things fixed the right way in the community. And I love a deal. So great job. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Member Woodward.
I would like to agree with my colleagues down the line there. I still have reservations when I'm looking at a 2011 Freightliner, white standard cab and chassis, approximately 140,000 miles. That just, and again, I don't have enough knowledge about that to know what that means, but when I look at our other things that we're looking at, 12-year replacement and stuff, this starts out as older, and the Patcher body being 2015, so I'm going to support this based upon staff's as being part of the big team with the knowledge of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Seeing no other comments, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonekamp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
The same team here is in front of us for the 7 vehicles for the police department from Siltahar Motors in the amount of $279,580.
Hi
Mr.
again.
Thompson.
How's everyone doing? Thanks again for hearing me out on this. I appreciate it. So yeah, this is a vehicle purchase for Siltahar Motors. To give you a little background, in 2019, we got together the Fleet Advisory Committee, and we changed the life cycle on police pursuit vehicles a little bit. Originally, when I joined the city, they were set to be replaced every 5 years. We determined on a police pursuit type vehicle, this is actually a long, long time. These vehicles idle much more than they're driven, and this idling puts wear and tear on these motors like you would not believe. And then when they are driven, I mean, they're driven. They're driven very hard. They suffer a lot of wear and tear. They tend to go over curves and other things like that. So we changed the cycle to a 4-year cycle instead of 5. So we are looking to replace these 7 units that are technically due as far as the 5-year cycle goes in 2023. But if we were to adhere with our new 4-year cycle, they would be due now in 2022. The majority of these 7 units, as you'll see in a slide coming up, in fact, all but one are already close to, at, or over the 50% threshold, which we deem them costing more to the city than they would to be replaced. So once a vehicle reaches 50% of its maintenance and repair costs of the cost of the vehicle, we determine that vehicle is now hindering the city more than helping it as far as the repair and costs go. So obviously, you know, higher fuel costs, maintenance, and all that kind of stuff. So here's our financial implications. You can see on the left column there, SURF funds collected. That's how much money is currently in the SURF fund per each vehicle. The column right to the right of that is the cost of the new vehicle. And then the far right column there is how much the SURF funds is short. So we're short a total of $37,584. We will take that difference and take that from the SURF balance to pay it, and then we'll incorporate those prices in the new SURF charge going forward, so we can reimburse that and allow for the new vehicle price going forward. So here's our maintenance and repair chart. As I said, all but one unit is very close at or over the 50 percentile. So all these vehicles that are currently on the road are starting to cost the city more money than they're worth. So for an example of how we're going to work the SURF charge going forward with these vehicles, if we get approval to replace them, one of the units is unit 7483. We've collected $37,578. The new vehicle is going to cost $39,995, which leaves us with a $2,417 shortage. And then we also have to incorporate the market adjustment, which right now is insane. I mean, I've gotten quotes last year and they've gone up 20% in some cases or even higher. So we do vary that by year, and we try to calculate, you know, based on current market to get our correct market adjustment. And so we'll take the total cost of the vehicle, including the fund shortage, and you know what we deem as a fair market adjustment going forward for inflation. And at this example, we have a total of $44,011.80. So our new SURF payment would come out to $11,003 every year. And then after the 4 years, when the vehicle is due to be replaced again, we would have a total of $41,594.68, which should be the perfect amount to purchase the new vehicle going forward and not have a shortage for when its replacement is ready. So staff is recommending that we replace these 7 units in 2022 versus 2023. As long as you watch the news at all, you know about all the supply chain issues. And the other thing that makes pursuit vehicles a little more difficult with the purchasing, they're only available certain times a year. So a normal sedan, a minivan, a truck, you know, I could purchase it in September, I could purchase it in June or January, you know, you name it. Police vehicles are only available at certain times a year per manufacturer. So right now the window for the Ford Explorers is now. It is currently open. It is closing, he said, within weeks. So that is why we rushed to get this one on the agenda in front of you right away. If you know, you don't decide to move forward with these units, again, if we go with the current rate that we've been looking at, you know, they could go up 18, 20, 25%. And in addition, if we wait for the window to open up in 2023 and then order them, most likely with what I've seen and how fast vehicles are being delivered, probably won't see them until 2024 sometime. I still have 3 units that council approved early last year, that were ordered early last year, that I'm still waiting on to come from the dealer. You've heard about the chip shortages. Right now we have a stainless steel issue. There's just a lot of things going on in the world right now that is, you know, factoring into these vehicles taking forever. And we're worried if we stretch these pursuit vehicles out longer than the allotted time, and then we can't get a replacement in, they're just going to wear themselves out and wear them to the ground, and the police department's going to be very short on vehicles. And I'm sure you guys have some questions for me on this.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem.
this might be kind of a wonky question. You talked a little bit about supply issues. I noticed on this one, we're using the state master purchasing agreement, which has generally served us pretty well. I'm wondering if we have considered at any time exploring a competitive bid, as opposed to just using the state master purchasing and seeing if we get different numbers back.
Yeah, we have, and the other thing I've been researching is going off different states, state bidding. So comparing New Mexico, for example, is one I've looked into as compared to Colorado versus other states. So trying to compare and keep everyone honest to make sure the prices are looking even. So we definitely look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Member Woodward.
Thank you. Under your slide, the financial implications, vehicle number 7492, why is that one, the funding shortage $7,000 and all of those others are 2417?
That's part of the big mystery that Steve and I have been trying to kind of figure out since we started. We both started here, 19, right? I started 19, I think you were early 19. These SURF reimbursement pricing was put in place by the previous management, and man, we've tried to reverse engineer. We've tried to look at the math and try to see what the method was that they were determining how to replace these vehicles in the future. And I swear to you, it seems like not one vehicle adds up the same as some other vehicle does. And there was nothing incorporated for inflation. It was this is what it costs now, and this is what we're generating funding for its replacement in the future, and we're assuming it's going to cost the same amount of money. And so there's a lot of mysteries in that we've dug into, and we've spent, I can't tell you how many hours trying to figure out where the methodology came from previous management. But that was the SURF funding that was put in place prior to us being here, and that's how it added
that was there.
Yeah, it was there, and I don't know exactly why.
And just real quick, and that's why we gave the example of our new surcharge to show you exactly what that new surcharge would be. So again, what we're trying to do is actually calculate what it's going to cost, when it's due for replacement.
Yeah.
So we want to prevent that going forward.
Well, it just didn't make any sense to me there. And then when you drop down to the maintenance and repair, 7492 of those vehicles is the lowest as far as maintenance and repair costs.
Yeah, and if you look to 7492 is slightly different than the rest. 7492, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm confusing that. Let me not talk outside. Yeah, so for some reason that one kind of survived better than the others, which is hard to say too, as to why. Some vehicles, the police officers just take a liking to, and they tend to grab, when they're called upon over others. That's really the only thing I can speak to on that, to why that one's a little bit lower than the rest.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Russell.
Thank you. So I know you say that mileage doesn't matter, but sorry. I know that you say that mileage doesn't matter on these vehicles, but the public perceives that they do. And so can we get the mileage on each of these vehicles?
I can definitely send that to you. Yes, and I don't want to give the impression mileage doesn't matter. I just want to say that mileage kind of undersells the amount of wear and tear on these vehicles, due to the hours that they take in as well. But I can definitely get you that information.
Right, and so as a matter of fact, 7477, the maintenance and repair costs are really low.
Yes.
I mean, so why would we replace that one?
So that one is an anomaly out of all of these. That was the one I was kind of referencing to earlier by mistake. So the difference between that one and the rest is that one is at the end of its 5-year cycle. And on top of that, it is used as a detective car, which also is used in pursuing. So it has lower mileage and lower hours than the rest of the vehicles, which is why the maintenance costs are so low. But speaking with the police department, they've had several instances where that car simply does not keep up and doesn't perform the duties they needed to do in its capacity. So we are recommending to replace that at its regular scheduled time rather than, putting it off another year, 2 or 3 years, due to the fact it's not really meeting the needs of the city.
And were these vehicles scheduled to be replaced this year, 2022?
7477 was. The rest of them were technically due in 2023 based on the old replacement schedule that we have since revised. So if you go by the old schedule, they are due in 2023. If you go by our new schedule of 4 years, they are due this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 11C3?
I move to approve agenda item 11C3.
Thank you, Member Wink. Could I get a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any additional comments? Member Russell.
I really have some concerns about moving forward with this. The economy is falling apart. People are having to tighten their belt, and we still are considering moving forward. The police department got all brand new vehicles when they got the new building. And I don't understand why they're already getting old. I am really struggling with this, that we would move forward and spend this kind of money the year before it's supposed to be due. I know what the projections look like, but it could turn around and next year the bottom could drop out of the market and there would be a lot of vehicles. So that's just a question for council. I don't think that I can support this right now.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward.
I know that, or I believe that we are always replacing vehicles every year for the police department. So it hasn't been that many years ago that we put in the new building, so I would imagine that this is different than when that building was put in. And you did say in there that the 2023 vehicles that are scheduled to be replaced, these are those vehicles. However, we have to order them now to get them in 2023, at which point the price will be quite a bit different, and it won't be lower than it is right now. So I will support this.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any other comments from council? Member Wink, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a question for Finance Director Lowe. I see that she's online because I want to just validate that the police department got all brand new vehicles when we got the new building. My memory might not be serving me, but Member Russell just mentioned that, and I don't recall that being the case. I just want to make sure I'm on the right page. City manager / and mayor, is that okay if Director Lowe can validate that spending?
I see Director DeAndre here ready to answer the question, so.
Perfect.
Yes, if I could, Director Lowe may not know off the top of her head, but I was intimately involved with the police building project, and we did not.
Yep.
So there were some equipment that they purchased with the bond funds, which Chief Watson and Commander Fender can get into, but there was more like equipment and different things. We did not replace any vehicles with using that budget at the time of the building.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Director DeAndre. So we did not buy all new vehicles when we got the new police building. So, okay, then I will wholeheartedly be in support of this because of the all of the valid information shared in our packet and presented here tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Member Wink. Member Russell.
I would like to do a council request on how many vehicles were replaced with bond money, because vehicles were replaced, and perhaps it wasn't all, but vehicles were replaced.
Any other comments from council? Member Newnenkamp.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be supporting this tonight, and I appreciate the forward thinking of staff. I think a lot of members of our community are making this bargain right now of, do I buy it now or do I risk trying to buy it later? And that's a really real challenge that we're all facing. And I share some of Member Russell's heartburn, right? Like it's a big ticket, and I'm looking at that 6%, and that replacing it at 6% doesn't feel great. But I also know that our police force needs to have the equipment that available to them to keep our community safe. And if that vehicle, which is on the schedule that we've set out ahead of time, that's the appropriate schedule to replace it, and EPD has asked for something that would equip them to better do their job protecting our community, I'm inclined to support it. So I hear the concerns. I've evaluated them as I've been preparing for this meeting, but we'll be supporting tonight.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Before I go to the vote, I see City Manager Lewis has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that we did not buy any cars with bond money, but the Bearcat was purchased as part of the bond. And I have verified that with Deputy Chief Vance Fender, who's on the call.
Thank you, City Manager Lewis. Seeing no other comments, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Russell.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Concludes the Public Works portion of the meeting tonight. So thank you very much to all of Public Works for coming out over the last few agenda items. Moving on to 11C4 is the approval of updates to the City of Englewood Strategic Plan. And up to speak on this is Assistant City Manager Tim Dodd. Good evening, Mr. Dodd.
Good evening. So I know this was postponed from your last meeting. So tonight I'm going to go through just an overview of where we're at with the plan. And I have 2 check-in questions. So one is to see if you have any final changes you'd like to make. And then the second one is the prioritization of goals that are within each outcome area in the plan. So just to go over, I'm obviously not going to go through every item on this slide, but we've had 19 check-ins with council since the plan was created and adopted in 2020. Many of these check-ins, as you'll see, were routine quarterly updates, which we hope to get back to this summer. Starting in December, on December 6th, we've had several check-ins relative to the redevelopment of the strategic plan and had a very robust conversation at your retreat that was held at the end of January. The steps that we went through to revise the strategic plan, there's a variety of things that we did. We obviously looked at the existing strategic plan projects. We looked at determining what the gaps were in that plan. We got feedback from all of you, feedback from staff, put it out there for a public engagement process. And so we've done quite a bit of robust discussion to get to this point. These are the 6 check-ins that we've had since December. So as you'll remember, when the new council was seated, we met twice to go over a draft revision of the strategic plan. And also, I think it was on the 13th, council voted to do a public engagement process. We did that in December and January. We then had again a discussion at the retreat. We did another check-in in February. And then the check-in that was scheduled for a few weeks ago for March is now tonight. As a reminder, we did do a public engagement. This mostly consisted of using Englewood Engaged. We did get a few other comments that were included in previous packets. I think we received around 100 comments in the poll, in our poll that we did through Englewood Engaged. All this information was presented to you as part of the discussion that was held at the retreat, which I believe was on January 29th or thereabouts. As a reminder, one of the key things of why prioritization is important is it helps staff understand the areas that we should be focusing on and prioritizing. It will also be a key part of the budget. We've had some internal meetings with Director Lowe and her staff to discuss plans for the 2023 budget. And we want to use this year something called an enhancement form, which would basically let departments propose modifications to the budget to enhance services. And we're hoping to utilize priorities from the strategic plan as a way of guiding those enhancements and making recommendations to you for priorities. They will also help in terms of when we do our quarterly updates of knowing which items to highlight. Obviously, you'll see updates on everything in the plan, but prioritization will help us know which items we should be prioritizing in our discussions with you and our updates with you on a quarterly basis. Also, as a reminder, something we're going to be working on more this spring, once we have our metrics created as part of the plan, is a robust dashboard that we're working on with our communications team and our IT team, our GIS, actually renamed Data and Spatial Analytics Division. This is just a very rudimentary vision, but hopefully this summer, if not in the early fall, we'll have a very robust dashboard built out to be able to share with you. That will also be part of the website that we'll be using to communicate progress on the plan with the public. So the two questions that I had for you this evening are, number one, are there any changes that you'd like to see made before you choose to act on the plan? And then number two, you did already made recommendations on what the priorities for outcome areas should be as part of the retreat, but we collected the data a little bit later on prioritizing goals within each of those. And so we've also provided you with slides that show your rankings. So these are your votes. As a reminder, you got 3 dot votes for each of the different areas. And so in addition to seeing if you had any changes you wanted to make, we also wanted to see how you feel about these priorities and whether you'd like to set priorities as part of the goal areas.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd, for the presentation. Any questions from council? Seeing no questions, I guess just regarding the discussion questions, anybody feel any changes need to be made before we are ready to consider adoption?
Point of order, I think we need to make a motion on it and then make any changes within that motion, so we're not discussing outside of a motion.
Yeah, you're right about that, Member Anderson. So no questions for Mr. Dodd, so then I will ask for a motion to approve 11C4.
I move to approve 11C4.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Nooncamp. Now moving on to so the motion's on the table. Does anybody feel a need to make amend the motion that's currently on the table? Member Anderson, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to look at the sustainability goals, because this particular section of the plan stands out to me in that it looks like it has some different features that I think we need to consider. I'm part of obviously the liaison for the Sustainability Commission and heard the discussion. It was this is a new commission in many ways, mostly new members, and a lot of excitement. There were a lot of suggestions that were considered from Case, a lot from our new sustainability coordinator, and then a lot of suggestions that came up on the night that we met to discuss this particular section. And I think, and it was a lot of excitement in the room around these ideas, and it was a really good discussion. I enjoyed it. And then afterwards, going back and reviewing it as a council member, I'm supportive of many of these things, but also wonder if we're not spreading ourselves too thin, and then want to reconsider what we're actually considering what a project is. So within the sustainability goals section, we have the 9 overarching goals with key projects underneath. Under many of the different goals, there's a lot of language that says evaluate, consider, study, investigate, those kind of things. I think those, I don't want to take away the duty to evaluate and consider new ideas, but they aren't actually projects that, when executed, would result in moving us forward to attaining those goals. And I would see that investigation process more as a part of the process of revising the strategic plan for future years. So I think what I would want to do, if council is amenable, is to think about pulling out all of those ones that have the study, consider, those kind of language, and give the Sustainability Commission and the Sustainability Coordinator a broad freedom to explore any and every idea that might be, especially ones that would be, cost effective and would move us the furthest along, for recommendation to add to the goals for when we go to revise the sustainability plan, but to not actually include all of those things as goals, because I'm afraid what we end up putting on our sustainability coordinator is a lot of things to do that don't actually move forward towards those goals. So if we were going to include a goal along those lines, I would want to consider one that would maybe be much more general, such as for the sustainability section in general, investigate ideas for next year to add to the sustainability plan that would move us forward in a cost-effective and efficient way to accomplish these goals. But for now, to remove all of those type of goals because they're not actually, or all those type of projects because they're not actually projects. They're more about the revision process. Does that make sense? I don't know where council kind of lands on this.
Thank you for that, Member Anderson. Any questions for Member Anderson in terms of, I'm still trying to digest your words and going through the project, so Mayor Pro Tem.
I think I largely share Councilmember Anderson's sentiment. My concern when I look at this plan, in particular relative to sustainability, is the presentation you gave earlier says that at our retreat we concluded that infrastructure and public safety were our two biggest priorities. And when I look at tonight's packet, I see sustainability. When I look at the draft of the sustainability plan, even, there's 2 pages for neighborhoods, 2 pages for infrastructure, a couple of pages for governance, and then 2.5 pages for sustainability. My concern is we're losing. It feels like we're losing focus on what we said we wanted to do in favor of some things that we might actually want to do. So I want to make sure that we have consistency between what we're stating as our top priorities and ensuring that the plan reflects those as our top priorities by assigning projects to those top priorities. And it feels like sustainability is the way it's structured here, particularly with the suggestions for additions, is at serious risk of bogging down the rest of the plan. There's only so much time the city of Englewood can dedicate to various projects, and I want to see the majority of our time dedicated to the top 2 goals, safety and infrastructure.
It's okay, Mayor, if I respond. I think the comments made by Member Anderson and Mayor Pro Tem Ward, I think make a lot of sense. And just the reason why there was a larger sustainability chart is because on February 14th, so in between your retreat and the February 14th meeting, from CASE, we received a slew of changes. And so it sounded like at the time that council wanted those to kind of be referred to the coordinator and to the commission. And so that's why you saw kind of the big chart, because those were basically the changes specifically made in that area. And it by no means was meant to say like, okay, we've done all this work on sustainability without focusing on the other areas. Remember, and Manager Lewis did share with me, Member Anderson, your concerns. And I think it definitely makes sense. I mean, I think as you saw sitting through those meetings, we have a lot of folks on the commission that are very passionate and very well intentioned. And so instead of kind of saying we want to do these, whatever it is, 100 things, they kind of use language like we'll study, we'll think about it. But I completely appreciate and understand by taking those out, it would provide the commission and this coordinator with the opportunity to kind of explore things as their time permits and then to present them to you next year.
Member Noonan-Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. I heard the Mayor Pro Tem bring up earlier his desire for consistency, and I have that as well. And in the spirit of consistency, we do in the other sections have projects that say explore, study, assess. So I don't want to, pick on sustainability as one. I do think that there are more, but I also think that this area of the goal or the plan is probably the newest and kind of the least developed, so it would make sense that there are more things that we would explore. And I'm probably a little bit more open to that. It is a lot though. Like I'm looking at this and it's a lot of information. And I think my question is, how are we going to prioritize it to know, and I remember when Ms. Englund was here, when she was introduced to council, she said, what's the low-hanging fruit? What can we start doing immediately? And I think some clarification on what that is in this plan would be super helpful, the prioritization. But then also, you know, sustainability as an issue in our community, I'm very uninterested in us doing anything that is performative. It looks good, but it doesn't actually do anything for the community or for the climate or for our citizens. And so I'm curious, how are we going to make the decisions on what are the things that are going to have the greatest benefit for our community over the long term versus something that maybe kind of looks a little bright and shiny? And so I think those are some of the outstanding questions that I'm challenged with. And so I'm wondering, obviously we have the goals within this section. Is that how staff would approach all of these different things we can study?
Yes, our first way of prioritizing would be based on the way you would like us to prioritize. So based on this, water protection would be the number one thing that we would focus on. And I agree, I'm a Brenda Camp, you know, we're really focused on wanting to have a sustainability program that really does deliver results, and also one that really ties to other areas in the plan. You know, so we want to make sure that our sustainability program ties to your economy goals, and your neighborhood goals, and your infrastructure goals as well. So I think that would also be a filter that we would use.
No, that's helpful, and I appreciate that. And I know I had put in a council request because some of these also can be a little vague, right? To know, well, what are we kind of approving as a project or as an idea for a project? You know, and I also think that this plan can almost act as a clearinghouse, a kind of a way that we hold all the ideas. This is where we're storing all the things that we could be looking at to do. And if we're approaching it that way collectively and we have a shared understanding that it operates as that, I'm comfortable leaving it as is, knowing that council will approve things before we actually engage with them, and that staff will use the prioritization that council has approved.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Member Anderson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to respond to Member Noonan-Camp's comment that there are some of those in other sections. I did notice that as well. And I would also like to see those removed for, I mean, I think this is more of a process and less of a specific section. I think it's particular, you know, it comes out particularly clear in the sustainability section, but I did see in the safety section, there was one that was, you know, look at our use of force policy. You know, I would like to, like, if we need to revise our use of force policy, then let's revise use of force policy. But I think the police department is always looking at the use of force policy. So I don't know if that needs to be in the sustainability or in the plan until we're ready to move forward with a revision on that or something to that effect. And so I would be happy to more broadly remove any of the investigate kind of stuff from the rest of the sections, just because I wouldn't define those as projects, but kind of those are pre-projects. They're in pre-project status, and certainly I'm sure, you know, our sustainability coordinator, Ms. Englund, has a lot of things on her personal list to study, and I'd be happy for her to study those things and bring them back in the future for suggestions as well.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Member Russell?
Thank you. And I agree with Council Member Anderson and Mayor Pro Tem Ward. And I think some of my concerns about the sustainability section also is I believe some of them are overreaching and political agendas. And I guess what I'm concerned about is really implementing some of these things, and the cost will be far more expensive than we can afford. I would like to see us limit more of this rather than leave it in, because I think the things I've seen in how the strategic plan has worked the past couple of years is whatever's in here is what staff is moving forward on. Once we approve this, it is giving them direction to go ahead with this. So I think that we probably do need to be careful about that. Going back to the safety issue also in the police department, I noticed sometimes how will we know we're succeeding is, well, how many officers are trained in this? And everything is about staff, and it's all inward focused rather than how are we engaging with the community. I think the one thing that we as a council need to keep in mind is our focus in how our goals are impacting the community. And I understand that staff needs to be trained, but I think there are some areas where we need to figure out how to count interactions with people, you know, positive, negative, whatever. So that's all I have to add right now.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward.
With regard to sustainability, I disagree on taking anything out of it right now. I think we ought to be leaving it in. And with the understanding, we're not going to get it all done this year. We're not going to get it all funded this year. This is long-term stuff. Some of it, the easy stuff, we get done. But as I recall going through it all and reading what was there and stuff, I'm not so sure I recall anything that I would specifically take out. I think one of the reasons there's so much in the sustainability is there's a sustainability commission that was pretty well plugged into this being a part of the strategic plan, and them addressing that and realizing there were going to be revisions, which gets me to the next subject of some of our other things. For example, Parks and Rec, and I think next year what we ought to be doing is bringing this forward to some of our other commissions, because there's numerous things here that are effectively, or that those commissions effectively deal with. Physical and mental health goals, I don't recall that being brought up at a commission meeting and let's look at the strategic plan and see what recommendations we as a commission and citizens would have. That wasn't there, or I don't recall it. So anyway, with strategic, or with the sustainability part, I think we should leave it there and prioritize what we're doing, set our goals on what it is for the short term, moving into the long term, and then next year do the same and get more added. I also just want to confirm with the deputy city manager that I had noticed that I had been after these tweens and teenager programs, and the teenagers got in there, but the tweens got left out, and I saw Tim in the corridor the other day, and he was going to get it back in. So.
Sure, if that's what the council would like, I'm happy to add that in. Yeah.
But I think, this is another one of those items where I don't know if a 9-year-old is considered a tween, probably not. But she is one advanced 9-year-old that we met tonight. So I'd love to have her. I think she has her opinions. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. I guess I haven't spoken yet. I like to keep it as is as well. I like to see this as or the way that I'm looking at this is that, yeah, we may not be able to get around to all of this. And there obviously could be modifications here in the future based on what we learn over the course of the year when looking at the strategic plan. Also, a lot of this information, I kind of wrestled with it just in the fact that some of this is going to be covered during Code Next. And so there may be some changes that we have to make based off of what comes back from Code Next. And that's fine with me as long as we keep it as a living document and make changes on the fly based off what we learn. I'm happy with that, and so we can go back to our citizens and say, we did look at that and it wasn't cost advantageous, or for whatever the reason happens to be. So I personally would prefer to keep it as is, and then obviously make modifications as we go along. Member Woodward, anything else? Or
I'm sorry.
Member Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with you, Mayor, and Member Woodward. I would like to, understanding the context in which those items for that specific committee landed on the docket, I would like to leave them as is and just understand the evolution over time. So thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, Member Wink. Member Anderson, go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure in terms of if there's support for this, but I would be interested in making a motion to eliminate some of these. So is now a good time for that?
I believe so. I think we got through our questions. Go ahead, Member.
Well,
Anderson.
I'll go through and just, and kind of, I'll make a motion and then list some of these. Maybe there is, for anyone who supports this, a friendly amendment to remove or add back in. I'm happy to accept those, but I'm kind of going off of language here, investigate, evaluate, those kind of keywords. So I move to remove from the sustainability goals.
Excuse me, can you tell us where you are on this, or if it's coming from this at all?
I just had I printed off the slides because it was a little more concise in there. Is that-
Slides, okay. I have,
I'll name which area it's under and which bullet point it.
that would be
or,
helpful.
you know, where, I don't know if I'll be able to count all the way up on some of these bullet
I
points.
think it's page 944 in the packet.
Okay, you,
Where are you on slides?
sustainability goals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's before that section that you're at.
Let me try and find the middle of this.
Yeah, there, it's those blue ones.
There
right?
it is.
Yep. Okay, I'll make a motion to remove the following projects from sustainability goals. First, under air quality, the last bullet point, investigate, education, and outreach. The next, under number 2, the built environment infrastructure, remove, evaluate financial model supporting, and then maybe the 5th or 6th one, explore reducing waiting lists. And then the next one, investigate EV and PV ready. Continuing on to number 3, investigate creating a climate change vulnerability index. And then number 5, energy. Well, actually, that one I'm okay with. Study and pursue decentralized solar gardens. That would be the maybe 6th bullet point. Then 2 below that, consider divesting the city's banking from fossil fuels. Study the feasibility. Actually, that one makes sense. Then the last one, investigate ways to help renters benefit from energy efficient upgrades and retro. Again, I'm happy with many of these being studied, but I just don't think they qualify as goals. And then under number 6, those are good. Under number 7, explore establishment of a plan. The first one, investigate initiating a city employee. That's the last bullet point under number 7. Number 8, evaluate existing paper processes. Investigate requiring commercial and multifamily buildings to offer recycling. Investigate a policy for construction waste diversion. Investigate composting programs and communication strategies. And then the last 2 explores there as well. Under number 9, I think those, we have evaluate opportunities for incorporating water quality improvements. And I think that is, those are the projects I'll kind of throw out there in my motion.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Could I get a second? Or do we need any clarification from Member Anderson? I know I missed some, but I'm hoping staff. Tim,
It's all
how
recorded.
quick can you type?
Second.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Noonan-Kemp.
Can we discuss now?
Yep.
I think I'm understanding what Councilmember Anderson's trying to accomplish here, and I think a more narrow list that you just listed versus kind of everything that was a study is a little bit more helpful for me and not quite as blanket. And I think I could be okay with maybe putting all of those like in a holding area, you
Sure.
know, of like if we have capacity and funding and we've accomplished our priorities, then we can look at these things, except for the compost, because we have heard quite a bit of citizen engagement.
Fair.
I do think that the
Yeah.
Sustainability Commission is already evaluating. So that's the only one I'm not with you on. I don't know if we can amend the motion or if
Yep.
we need to do it again. But otherwise, I think I could support not getting rid of them altogether, but kind of moving them maybe to a holding area.
Member Woodward.
With, with that being said, I would maybe suggest what we do is if council is agreeable to adding or deleting those items or taking those items and putting them in the very last item under each one of these as a group holding or to be prioritized or something like that. So it's in the document and it is there. Because I'm sure it's going to be modified again as we go on. It's, as the mayor said, it's a living document that is going to be changing.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Member Russell, I saw your light first. Do you still have comment or?
Well, I was just gonna ask a question about the Explore a composting program at all city facilities, track tonnage collected. Is that the one that you were suggesting, Member Noonan Camp, that we leave in, or the one up above it? Investigate composting programs and communication strategies. I mean, I'm okay with taking both of those out, not because I don't think that we should do it. When those three ladies came, and I mean, a grassroots level and doing things from a grassroots level can work as well. I'm okay with leaving it in, but I don't want to, we need to evaluate the cost versus the benefit for the city.
To answer your question, I apologize. There are two composting ones and I was confused. I would like to ensure that we continue to investigate residential composting. And, you know, I do think that they need a place to put that potentially. And so I do think that there is a role for the city there, and it would be to investigate. To Member Woodward's point, I would also support maybe having an area where there's key projects. This is what we're going to do. And then another area of like items for further study, maybe under each goal.
Mayor, if I
Yes, Member Anderson.
I would, on the composting one, I would actually be in favor of just taking that on as an actual project. Implement a composting program of some kind, because I think that's good and it's important. And why, study it along with 100 other things if we really want to do that, move that one up in priority. If we don't get to it this year, we don't get to it this year, but that's, that could be an actual goal. And then the rest of these, whether we put it into the last section or put it into a paragraph of its own for further study, and then tag on to the end of that, and any other, part of what I'm afraid is that we've included some good ideas here, but maybe not the best ideas. And so include a bullet point that says explore and study all of these things potentially, or any other ideas that might be cost-effective ways to reach this goal. Because I think in the rush to kind of put everything in there that came to our minds in this one meeting, and if you're interested in seeing how a meeting like this goes, it was quite a bit of stuff in a really long meeting, and we just kind of said yes to everything. And I get it in the context of the conversation and a lot of excitement, and everyone wanted to bring their ideas to the table, and I think those should stay on a list somewhere, but not be included as actual goals. So I would happily accept accept an amendment, or I'd even amend it myself to put these into a list of things for further study with additional items that might meet those goals. I don't know if that's a fair sounding amendment. Does that sound workable?
Thank you, Member Anderson. I'll let council weigh in on that. I actually have a different question for Assistant City Manager, but Member Noonan-Camp.
To Councilmember Anderson's earlier point about the other areas in the plan that also have study or consider, I'm thinking as I'm speaking, but I believe I would support a across the plan doing key projects and then another section under each that says areas to study or to consider, you know, because some of these, they may become projects, but we may look at it and say, no, this actually isn't going to be the right fit for Englewood, and we might move on from it. So if that would just make it clean and it would just be across the board in every section, I would also support that.
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Member Russell?
Thank you. I actually have a couple things, and then I have a question for the city manager. I have watched a couple of the sustainability commission meetings, and they just changed from KEB to sustainability back in August, I believe, is when they changed their names. And I think the committee, when they first changed, was really struggling. They still wanted to do the Keep Englewood Beautiful and all of these things. I agree with Member Anderson. It just overwhelmed them, and they didn't really know what to do. It's not that this was, the committee's been around forever and they've been working on this forever. They haven't. They just threw it together at the last minute. And so I do struggle with that. My other question for the city manager, I mean, in the past, this has been my take on, once we pass the strategic plan, these are your work orders. We're not going to it's not coming back to us to discuss whether we're going to do this. Staff is probably going to move forward on what they choose.
Thank you for the question, Member Russell. You are correct. These are essentially marching orders for staff. However, I think if council said we do want to put, you know, these however many items in a parking lot to come back or get some feedback from the Sustainability Commission on, we could certainly do that and move forward with all the rest. So it would certainly be acceptable to staff to do that. And maybe Assistant City Manager Dodd would want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And I was also going to say, and also to a point, Mayor, that you've made, is the plan right now, and this is a living document, so the plan right now is to follow the same cadence we did the last 2 years, which means we'll present this to you quarterly and give you an opportunity formally at that time to add things, delete things, modify things. So we certainly plan to continue doing that. If you want us to bring it more often than that, we're happy to do that, but we definitely know that, you know, if you do approve it tonight or you approve it next time, whenever it is, it will come before you multiple times in the course of the next few years for edits.
Member Anderson?
Well, what I'm hearing from council is maybe a slight modification of my motion is needed, and I think I like Member Noonecamp's idea. So if I could revise or amend my amendment to something more like Member Noonecamp's idea where we anything that's a study, evaluate, look into, investigate throughout the entire plan goes into a separate subsection under each of those main headings, and then in addition includes any other ways to reach these effective and cost effectively reach these goals. Is that an acceptable amendment? Are you guys following that?
Go, Member Noonekamp.
Would it be maybe key projects and then projects to consider? Is that the two sections perhaps?
Yeah, I suppose so, or yeah, I mean, or things, items for further study, yeah, something to that effect, yeah.
Yeah, I can support that.
Thank you. Can I get an official second?
Oh, I second, I apologize.
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Member Woodward?
I was just going to mention that I would support if we put those in a category of items to be studied or items to be, to be studied.
Mm-hmm.
So they're there in the document, and maybe for sustainability for that committee, maybe some people will take them on and study them. I mean, maybe they're large enough or have enough to have people assigned to those to look at, and we'd get results or get, definitions by the next time it comes around, and probably new things. So I could support that.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Does council mind if I ask a question of Assistant City Manager Dodd? It may go outside of it, but it's about this subject. But I'm just kind of wondering, in terms of the bandwidth that our sustainability coordinator England has on this, like, to me, it still sounds like, I'm looking at this, I don't think that this is really going to fall. I know we're prioritizing, but I still think that these are items that she's probably going to be able to get to here this year, at least to research. So what is it that we're really changing? Well, I know what we're changing, but I guess you could just answer my question.
Sure, Mayor, and I think the way I'm interpreting it is that council really wants the focus, obviously, to be on the projects that can be implemented this year and ones that tie to your priorities. She is right now a 30-hour-a-week employee, so it's not a full-time position, although she came to us with quite a bit of experience and has a commission that's very eager. And I think one of the other key facets of her position is it's not meant to generate and do all of the projects in this area. She's really meant to be a collaborative resource. So for example, things like composting or recycling or electric vehicles, she'd be partnering with Public Works on. So I think, and she is on the call, so I believe, so I don't know if, I don't know, Melissa, if you're there, if she was going to be, I don't know. She might not be. But in any event, I do think, so to answer your question, I think we would prioritize clearly, and our work plan would focus on the projects that fit in your priorities and that can be done. And then if she did have additional bandwidth, she would then focus on exploring and studying the other areas.
No, I appreciate that. The only reason why I asked is like 5 of those are part of like the single hauler. So they really fall under like Public Works in a sense in terms of their purview. But any other comments? Seeing none, can we please vote on the amendment on the table?
Point of information, if I could ask Assistant City Manager Tim Dodd, if we approve this amendment, is this something you feel comfortable in terms of direction for going through and revising without having to come back to us? Is this a pretty straightforward?
Yeah, I certainly do. As I mentioned, I'll probably watch the video of this a few times, but yeah, and I'll probably have Mel do it too, so that.
Well, and I think the revision of the amendment expanded it a little bit to go throughout the other sections as well, and perhaps I missed some in this section too that could be pulled out and put that are more properly investigator study type ones. But if I think it's a doable one, I'd like to approve this tonight, not put it off again.
Yeah,
So.
no, I agree. I think it would be relatively easy for me to go through, and based on the guidance that you gave.
Actually, before I jump in, if there were any items that you were wishy-washy about, you would come back to council and just make sure you get clarification. Yep. Okay, appreciate it. Seeing no other, Member Noonekamp.
And just one other point of information. If upon further study, one of these, in any of the sections, things that we look at, we say, no, this should be a project. When you come and present it on your quarterly, we can move it up to a key project and greenlight it then, correct?
You can do whatever you want. So you can remove projects, add projects, shift them around. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, can we please vote?
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonekamp.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Member Wink.
Aye.
Member Woodward.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Nay.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay. The 1 nay being Mayor Sierra.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
That was approval of the amendment, correct?
Correct.
So we still have the plan itself on the table.
Correct.
There's one item I would like to consider. It's the line, consider divesting the city's banking from fossil fuel investments. And that particular line is troubling for me as someone who drives a car that I fill with gas on roads in Colorado that are very busy and keeps my house at 72 degrees during the wintertime, heated with natural gas. I really have no interest in this particular item, and I don't see its purpose other than a signal that we don't support the things that we all use every day. I take hot showers. I could come up with a dozen more things, when I turn the light switch, my lights come on. We have fossil fuel to thank for that right now. And whether or not the city invests in fossil fuel or profits from fossil fuel is not of concern to me at all. So I don't think it's in the city's best interest to even consider divesting from fossil fuel investments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Was that a motion? Or do you want, well, actually, before you make a motion, Member Russell.
I have a question. So where is that at in the plan?
It's one of the items that Member Anderson moved to sort of the holding area, but I don't even believe that it belongs in the holding pen, so I would like it removed altogether.
Okay, but where is it right now?
So, Member Russell, it's under sustainability goals,
Okay,
energy, and then it's halfway down.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? If not,
I'll move
you
that
wanna make-
change.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Temp. Member Anderson.
A second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any comments from council?
I would just, oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
Thank
Member
you.
Anderson.
This is actually one that got some pushback from several members of the Sustainability Commission as well. And I think they decided to leave it in because it just said, consider. But I agree with Mayor Pro Tem's analysis there as well. I don't think it's in the city's best interest to divest from resources that we use so heavily. I don't think it harms us to be invested in those things.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any other comments? Member Russell.
Yes, I agree with that assessment. I think it's very dangerous for us to, I'm not saying that it's not gonna change in the future, but right now, I believe it is unwise to move forward with that when we don't have something to replace it. Thank you.
Member Woodward.
Well, if it's in the holding column, we wouldn't move forward with it. And I'm not so sure that there was a headline today regarding where we're going, a new study or something. I didn't read the article, I just saw the headline. But I think that needs to stay in under the holding part. I'd rather not pull out anything.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any other comments from council? Actually, I'll just chime in. This one I actually will vote in favor of. I'm in agreement with a majority of council here that I'm not in agreement with it just for the simple fact that, or some of the comments that Mayor Pro Tem stated. So I will be in favor of removing this one. Seeing no other comments, can we please vote?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Member Wink,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Nay.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Woodward.
Thank you. Any other changes that council would like to make before we vote on the amended strategic plan? Seeing none, can I get is there a motion? There is a motion on the table. Any additional comments? Actually, I'm just trying to, so it was Member Anderson and Member Noonenkamp, right? That made the original, okay. Can we please vote on the amended motion to the strategic plan?
So I just want to verify, we're
Member
voting
Russell.
on the strategic plan as amended.
As amended, there we go.
Actually,
By Member Russell.
there's another one that I might like to pull, and it's under infrastructure and transportation. Finalize and implement scooter pilot program. I'm a little bit concerned about that because this came up on council a year or two ago, and there are a lot of problems with scooters sitting around neighborhoods. We still see them occasionally, and nobody will come and pick them up in Englewood because we don't have them. But I'm not sure that I want to move forward with that right now.
Thank you, Member Russell. Any other comments from council? Member Russell, did you want to make the motion?
I move that we pull that from finalize and implement scooter pilot program.
Thank you, Member Russell. Could I get a second?
I'll second it for the sake of discussion.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Any comments from council? Member Noonan-Camp?
I apologize, Mayor. Can I ask staff a question?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Member
It's
Noonan-Camp.
fine. I just have a question. Where are we in this process for the newbies in the room?
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. And for council members that I've had my one-on-ones with, maybe it was before you and Member Woodward were on, because of the workload in Public Works, I did advise council that we were postponing this pilot project. And so we have struggled to find, the staff resources to actually do that. The company that we were going to do that pilot with did reach out in the last month to the Director of Public Works and I, and we did inform him that that was on hold. But we, still have it on the work plan to do, particularly as we staff up in our engineering section.
Any other, Member Russell?
So can I ask another question along that lines then? Do we have bicycle programs in the city? Or do we have to partner with them like we do scooters?
Oh, for the bikes that you rent?
Yes.
No, we do not.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Woodward?
I think a lot of those bicycle programs have been discontinued. I think Denver has removed theirs.
They have, but you can still do them through Bird or Lime, I believe is the big one, but. Member Russell?
Thank you. And so my other comment would be, my concern also is that the scooter program may go the same way as the bicycle program. So.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Wink?
Thanks. I'm not going to make any decision just based on hearsay and without having any data or thinking something may happen or may not. So I'm willing to entertain it, certainly, if we have some facts and figures. Certainly would be happy to look through that and make decisions thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wink. I too will be voting no on this one. I like to see what could, what the presentation or what is possible with Bird or any of the other multimodal scooter programs, but I'll be voting no as of right now. Any other comments from council? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Member Anderson?
Nay.
Sorry. Member Noonan-Camp?
Nay.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Nay.
Member Wink?
Nay.
Member Woodward?
Nay.
Mayor Sierra?
Nay.
Let the record show 1 aye and 6 nays.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Seeing none, can we please vote on the motion, on the amended motion on the table? Does that work?
So I'm doing approval of the updated Englewood strategic plan as amended.
As amended. There we go.
Okay.
That works. Thank you.
Ready? Okay.
Think so?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Member Wink?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Sierra?
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Is everyone good to move to Mayor's Choice, or do we need a break? Good to go? Member
or-
Wink? Good to go?
Yeah, good to go.
Okay, perfect. All right, moving on to Mayor's Choice. I added an item here just because of the conversation we had last week regarding police services. Wasn't sure if we wanted to make it a budget amendment in order to bring some of those items forward or the entire thing forward prior to our current budget cycle. So wanted to get just feedback from council on should we just wait throughout this budget cycle and take that up at that time, or do you want to bring any of that item forward as soon as possible? Member Noonan-Camp.
Yes, Mayor, thank you for bringing this up. I've been thinking about the requests that EPD made of us last week, and evaluating that they're not the only department in the city, right? And we have a lot of other needs as well. We do have a budget process, but also recognizing some of the immediate and acute needs that they have. And the thing that I've been considering the most is the request for the desk officers. And the phrase I believe the chief used was that it's just a force multiplier for them, that if they can get some help on the paperwork side, they can have more folks who are on patrol, which is what they're really trying to solve for, as well as officers who are being pulled away from some of our really innovative alternative policing efforts that currently aren't fully staffed. So my recommendation to this council would be to move forward with at least one, if not both, of the desk officer positions in the near term, and then ask that the remaining requests be included in the regular budget cycle this year.
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Any other comments from Council Member Woodward?
I wanted to hear that again, to move forward with the 2 desk officers. Is that what I heard?
Yes, that's my recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move forward with the desk officers in terms of the broader recommendation to hire the additional 4 or 6 potential police officers. I have a couple of questions. I guess one of them would be in terms of a budget amendment is, do we have the revenue this year to support that? If we have revenue to go beyond the 2 desk officers, or I guess this would kind of what my question would hinge on is are revenues up higher than expected? Could we support those 2 desk officers potentially plus more than that with the revenue that we have? And then the second question would be, is it possible to in anticipation of approving this for a future budget, start the hiring process? Because that's what I see PD has the biggest problem with is if we say we can hire 6 officers, I don't really anticipate those being in place until at least 2023. I don't know, maybe they could come before that, but is it really going to have a big budget impact this year? And do we want to provisionally approve the hiring process at least to move those things along? I'm not sure, Manager Lewis, if those questions are something you can answer on the spot.
I think the only way that would work is if we just budgeted against vacancies, but that's not a guarantee. I would be needing to bring you a balanced budget, which would mean I would need to cut positions in other general fund departments. I would not bring a budget to you that could be fully funded if we were fully staffed and then we didn't have the money to pay for it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I think we're kind of entering slightly sticky territory here, but my perspective on it is we have a $1.2 million request from our police department that they're telling us could help to solve some of the problems that the city is having right now. And this rings particularly timely for me personally, as I woke up at 5 a.m. Sunday morning to the sound of gunfire. So I'm pretty keen on expanding police services. Looking at the February financial report, our 2022 unassigned fund balance, that is the amount of money that we have in the general fund that is not spoken for in our 16.7% reserve, our required Tabor reserve, or any other reserve line, is $5.5 million. So the way I read that, we could fund this budget request for at least 3 years using just that money that we already have in the bank. Assuming that financial conditions don't change citywide in the future and revenue remains stable. I guess I'm not suggesting that that's what we do immediately, but I would like my peers on council to consider our financial position overall as we are making this decision, because we have a $5.5 million pot of money right now that is not otherwise spoken for, and Mayor Pro Tem Ward woke up to the sound of gunfire on Sunday. So let's fix that problem.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Russell.
Thank you. So I have a little bit of problem with this. I think we need to be careful about doing a knee-jerk reaction. We asked the police department to come and explain to us how they could fix the problem that we have. And they come with a $1.2 million. Okay, we'll fix your problem. Maybe the police department needs to reallocate resources somewhere instead of the taxpayers always having to come up with more money. I am a little bit concerned about funding positions also, because even though we may have a revenue surplus now, does the TIF kick in next year in the DDA area?
They do, yes.
And so we won't know that we're gonna have that extra revenue, like we have in past years. And, so I think that perhaps we need to ask, I mean, the other city departments have had to do without people or without help, and they've had to figure it out. I think that the police, their number one priority ought to be the safety of the community. And whatever it takes to do that, I just don't think there is a boatload of money, and we should be making a knee-jerk reaction in the middle of a budget cycle.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Noonekamp.
I hear Member Russell's concerns, and I think that they're very valid. And I also, while I think that the police department's presentation was compelling, and I do want us to act. I want to be clear. I want us to act, and I want us to show responsiveness to the experience of our community in this challenging time where we are seeing not only regional but state and national crime trends. And I don't want us to be asleep at the wheel on this whatsoever, but I also don't think it's appropriate for us to make a very large budget decision in a vacuum when we don't have a fuller sense of all of the other budget requests of the other departments, which is why we have a very thoughtful budget process and cycle. But I'm looking at the 2 desk officers, which I believe would be civilian positions. They wouldn't be sworn officers. They would be, I think, a quicker hiring process. Are $175,000 is the estimated cost, which is one of the smallest costs here. And I think if that could free up more officers for patrol, and we could address some of the changes that police have experienced through some of the legislation in the last couple of years, that might be a good first step in the interim, and then consider the fuller request against all the other requests and needs of the city during the budget process.
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Member Woodward.
Yeah, last Monday evening, on one hand, was pretty emotional getting into this and seeing all the changes in that the legislature did and that sort of thing. And boy, I was pretty gung-ho, and I still would like to do these things. However, it was Tuesday morning, I woke up by Tuesday afternoon, I'm starting to think, well, wait a minute. We need to cut this down. In Thursday, talking to the city manager and him saying, well, he is going to have to cut some other positions in some other departments to make this $1.2 million. And I'm just thinking, okay, we need to cut this now, because on the other hand, I won't vote for or approve big cuts taken out of any reserves for this, only for this. So I like Member Noonenkamp's idea of doing the 2 desk officers, approving that to get done. And I would like to hear more from the police department about how they can cut that 6 additional police officers down to a different number. I know they would like to have, another police officer on the street at all times. However, I think there's probably trends that Monday or Sunday through the following Saturday, there's certain days of the week that the crime is somewhat less than other days. And if you cut out a couple of those days for that additional officer, we may be able to cut that number down. I'd like to see what they can do there. The other thing I was, I guess I was kind of reminiscing for myself with the city manager and thinking back to my former time on council. And as I recall it, originally it was safety services, which was a combination of the police and fire. And we would have the chief of police come and the fire chief come, both with these types of things. And it was every year. I mean, when we split up safety services into two different separate departments, police and fire, we still got those numbers. And I know we could refill this, but I feel like next year, you ask them the question, they'll come back with something similar. And I just think, okay, let's see what they can do. I think it's up to the chief and his team to come up with something a little better. I'm not willing to let other employees go for that right now.
Member Russell.
One other thing that I asked for this information the other day about Littleton. I think Littleton has a higher population, has a lower crime rate, has 72 officers, and how they're handling things. I think it would be wise to get information from some other police departments to see what they're doing differently.
Do you want to make that a council request?
Yeah,
Member Russell?
I already made that council request. Is that correct, city manager?
Yes, and it is the same one that the mayor had requested earlier in the week, so we can just add your name to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll chime in. I too want to just see this as part of the regular budget process. I would be open to seeing one of the civilian positions. I'm not sure if I want to see both at this point. Just because we went through the budget process, I know that the police department, at least the chief, stated that even some of the positions that we funded last year, like the traffic position, just got hired on and just started, right? So, obviously we did that. We added that headcount last year for the purposes of alleviating some of the service costs that they were experiencing. So I know this is a little bit different, but I still want to see it and get a holistic view of the entire budget across all departments. But I would be open to one of the civilian positions if we wanted to take that up tonight. Member Noonekamp.
Thank you for that comment, Mayor. I'll just add that one of the most concerning things that I heard last Monday was that the department is now trying to deal with as many calls for service as they can over the phone, because if they go in person, it triggers more paperwork and body camera footage processing and all of that. And that's a really concerning kind of incentive structure for me. And I want us to do whatever we can to ensure that our officers are coming in person to engage with our community. I think that's a best practice for ensuring that we have really strong community police relationships in the city, which we've had for a long time. And I feel like maybe we just haven't, and it's no one's fault, it's just a new piece of legislation, but we maybe haven't responded to the change in environment and atmosphere and requirements that our officers are experiencing. So I'm happy I'll start with one and see if it makes a difference. Then maybe if they can share that it's making a difference, we can consider the second one in the budget process.
Yep. Appreciate that. Thank you very much for that note. Member Noonekamp. Actually, City Manager Lewis, do we have these civilian positions already on staff, or is this a new position for the police department?
These would be new positions.
Okay. So do we know if we have onboarding, standard operating procedures for this role already drawn up for this, or I guess that could be a question for the police department when they're.
Yes, and I'm actually corresponding with the deputy chief now to get that information, but they are new positions and ones that I think we've had in the past. I'm just not sure if we've got those currently.
Okay, I appreciate that, City Manager. So I haven't heard consensus yet on how we want to move forward with this. It sounds like we may want to start with civilian positions, obviously take this through the budget process. That I've heard consensus about, but Does anybody want to see something come forward to council here this month about adding at least one civilian position?
I do.
Thank you, Member Noonencamp. Anybody else? I'm in favor of that as well. Member Woodward?
I'm in favor of that, and, I'm thinking that possibly even the 2 desk officers that's $175,000 compared to 1.2 million total. And if that gets somebody else out on the street, that, an officer that's been sitting or doing this stuff, I think that would be good, so.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Member Anderson?
I'm in favor of I want to see a budget amendment option on it and where that revenue would come from.
Okay.
For the 2 officers, actually, I'm hesitant to go much beyond that if it requires digging into our unassigned fund balance, if that's the right word for it now. I don't know. It seems to have changed recently, but I would love to utilize all that unassigned fund balance, but not for something that's going to clearly be a recurring,
Right.
A recurring cost every single year. When we definitely have capital improvements that I think we could easily fund with that.
So, Member Anderson, for my clarification, is this the 2 civilian roles or 2 officers?
The 2 civilian
Okay.
roles. Yeah, if we could go beyond that, if there's a way to go beyond that, I'd be happy to look at that too, but not with digging into the unassigned fund balance.
Actually,
for
I
that.
don't mind that approach at all, so. City Manager, did you have anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out that next week you'll be hearing from Director Lowe, who's monitoring the call tonight also. She'll be giving you the financial forecast. And so really what we're looking at for next year, I just want to caution the council as we do make these decisions, which staff supports certainly 1, probably 2. And I think that we could, utilize the unassigned fund balance for that in a more sustainable way, certainly than the 1.2 million. I do not think that is a sustainable way to fund the 1.2. But what you'll hear next week is some of the challenges of cost increases that we know we're already facing. We're looking at 6 figures for cost increases on health insurance. We have just started negotiations with both the Englewood Employees Association as well as the Englewood Police Benefits Association. So we know that those are going to be costs that are going to be fixed if you approve contracts for them, depending on the final negotiations of that. And then, as you know, we have the compensation and classification study, which I think will dwarf anything that you'll see from the collective bargaining units. So just wanted to put that on the table.
I appreciate it. City Manager, do you have direction on this?
I think I'm hearing consensus for 1, to bring to you as a budget amendment. And I did tell you that the budget amendment would be in April. That's going to be in May now. And so we will put the 1. And then next week, if you are feeling more confident in the budget forecast that you hear, certainly we can add additional positions as you're comfortable.
Right.
But we'll plan on 1 for now.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, moving on to the rest of Mayor's Choice. I'll keep it brief, but I just wanted to make council aware that during the DDA meeting last week, SKB spoke, and it was a 2-hour conversation. So we have that next week. We have single hauler next week. We have the start of the budget, and we potentially have an executive session if I understand correctly. So it may be a long night. We may have to talk on Wednesday about what we can shorten, or maybe even go to SKB and say, we got to keep this presentation pretty short and leave it more for questions, I guess. But I just wanted to make council aware that it may be a long meeting next Monday. Member Anderson.
I would just say on the SKB presentation, if they gave it to the DDA and it's been recorded, if they could I'm happy to go watch that whole presentation even before we come to the meeting. And if they can give us a much condensed one, knowing that this council is going to do their homework, then I think we could save a lot of time. That would be my preference.
I would be in favor of that. The only thing is that's the only audio, but they did provide presentation. I'll forward it on to the city manager so everybody has the presentation in case it's not on the website. But
I think that idea is a little bit problematic because this is all about the public getting the information at the same time the council does. So I think we have to do it in a council meeting.
good point. That is all I have for Mayor's Choice. Council Member's Choice.
Well, I was just gonna
Member Anderson, go ahead.
respond to that. I do think the information needs to be presented and available, but I don't know if a 2 hour, I mean, we very rarely get a 2 hour presentation. I don't know if we've ever received a 2 hour presentation on something. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of detail and a lot of helpful stuff in there, but at some point you get past the, you know, you get to diminishing marginal returns
Right.
for the benefit of both the public and city council, so.
Yeah, and I guess I should clarify, Member Anderson, it was probably about a 45-minute presentation, but then Q&A took about over an hour. City manager, or excuse me, council member's choice. Member Noonan-Camp.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's talk about a youth advisory council. It's very timely this evening. You may have seen I put in a council request on this in February. Interested to see if this is something that would be a good fit for our city. For those of you who don't know, I used to teach high school government. I'm very passionate about seeing our young people engaged in local government. And I think that this could be an interesting on-ramp to them. As Member Woodward pointed out earlier, we do have open seats that have been traditionally quite hard to fill, as it's also noted in the council request if you want to go read it. And I spoke with our citizen this evening, and I am curious if it's potentially intimidating for young people to serve on a commission with adults, and if there was a commission exclusively for young people, if it would feel maybe more accessible to them and maybe more interesting for them to engage in and to deal specifically with issues that affect the young people in our community, that they would get to choose themselves. I do know that you may have already seen that we've been pushing out and kind of advertising more that, hey, young people, we do have these seats available, which I'm really thrilled to see come out of that request. But I think that, you know, staff would probably be uncomfortable with trying to implement this in this summer cycle, which is quite soon, but would consider maybe in the next cycle in the winter, adding something like this or piloting it or having that conversation if the council's amenable to it.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Does anybody want to chime in on a youth board? Member Woodward.
Yeah, I would like to. We formerly had a youth, I don't know if I would call it a council, it was a commission, and it was run at the Parks and Rec level. A bunch of younger kids, and they had a council type of situation or setup. And I think that is dissolved after Director Black left, but he had one there. And some of those members were the members that were on Parks and Rec Commission, Cultural Arts Commission, and Library Board. Back in, I'm going to say maybe 2011 and 12 or 12 and 13, we were able to bring with us to National League of Cities in Washington, D.C., a couple kids that went through a application type thing, and council provided the funds to cover them at that conference, the congressional conference. And they're amazing. I mean, they're just totally amazing. We're having private meetings with a representative, with senators, and they ask hard questions, and they want the right answers. It's pretty I mean, it just really enthuses me. And same way with Parks and Recreation Commission, we used to have teen commissioners on there every year, and recently we haven't had those, and I think it's partially because of that commission that was run through Parks and Recreation Commission or Parks and Recreation Department. But I would support it in every way I could.
Thank you, Member Woodward. You probably don't even remember, but one of those kids was actually Member Noonan-Camp, so I'm joking.
I remember that it wasn't.
I would be in favor of that as well. I would be in favor of just evaluating or just doing a little bit of research on the youth board or commission. Anybody not in favor, at least of exploring? Seeing no head nods no, I'll take it that we can evaluate it. But anyone else with council members' choice tonight? Seeing none, I'll pass it over to our city manager for city managers.
Thank you, Mayor. Being aware of the hour, I'll be quick. Just wanted to let everybody know that Englewood, thanks to Mayor Sierra, will be hosting the mayors and commissioners for Arapahoe County meeting, and he's selected the topics of the DDA and, homelessness, Tri-Cities Homelessness Policy Committee as the two projects that we'll highlight for the different city managers, mayors, commissioners within the county. And so that'll be this Friday morning at 7:30. Also, Assistant City Manager Dodd and I will be at CCCMA, the Colorado City County Management Association, on Thursday and Friday of next week. But we will be in state, have cell coverage, and we'll be able to return if something happens, so we won't be having an acting. And I'll be monitoring emails, so feel free to continue business as usual. And then last but not least, today is Library Workers Appreciation Day. So the leadership team had a nice reception for our library staff. And please thank a library worker for their work if you see them this week. And our new library manager will be starting in about 2 weeks, followed by our new planning manager starting about the same time. So we're glad to welcome some key positions within the city. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager Lewis. We are now at about 10 o'clock and this meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a great evening.